What time is it? It's Podblast time! That's right, it's Podblast time yet again. Yes, I already did a show this week to honor the life of actor Mark Goddard. And then today I got the sad news around 6 o'clock on Sunday, October the 15th, 2023, that Suzanne Somers had passed away. So I had to jump on here, go live with you, and do a special report. The Nostalgic Podblast is covering the passing of Suzanne Somers. And I have a lot of excellent audio interviews with her, memories. I'm not going to be too terribly long. I say that every time, and then I go for like 4 hours. But I went about 2.5 hours just now on YouTube Live. But I'm going to post this on YouTube after it's live here on Facebook. I'm going to do a separate edition for you guys and for the listeners. This will be the audio platform version of my tribute to Suzanne Somers, as we all mourn her loss. But I'm going to start as if this was a normal show and just remind you that it is Podblast time. And this is your weird, informative, and hopefully fun time capsule of memories of days gone by as we forge ahead together in the game of life. Remember the board game, Life? I was a Monopoly man myself. But seriously, this show is specifically pop culture history, and it's about life experiences that we all have in common and that we share. That's what the Nostalgic Podblast is all about. This is the Nostalgia Show with a bite. Welcome. I'm Chance Bartels, no relation to Chance the Rapper. We've got a good one for you today! As Steve Harvey says at the beginning of Family Feud, we have a somber one for you tonight. By now, you've all heard the news. We have very sad breaking nostalgic pop culture news that Suzanne Somers has passed away. We're going to lead the show with that as we remember the life of Suzanne in a moment, and with special interviews with her, one of them by the late, great Tom Snyder, whom I had the pleasure of speaking with as a caller way back on September 20th, 1996, with Malcolm McDowell. I've played that on the show before. It's not about me. This edition is about Suzanne Somers, this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast. Also, I mentioned this in the Mark Goddard Podblast, remembering the life of Mark Goddard, who was best known as Major Don West in classic Lost in Space. But I'm going to cover it again here. There's three specifically really bad errors in Loki Season 2 on Disney+, a show that I love that's very well done. But it seems like the prop master was asleep at the switch. Whoever handled the props and some of the set decorations in Loki Season 2, in the first couple of episodes anyway. So this isn't going to be a full-blown Podblast, but I do have a couple of our regular features that are not reruns, new content with some of our regular segments like the TV cliche of the week, the fake rant of the week, the nostalgic treat of the week. That'll be coming right up here in the Nostalgic Podblast. By the way, if you're listening at Fistful of Radio out of Atlanta or on Apple or Google Podcasts, by the way, Google Podcasts is going away. They made that clear that in 2024, they're going to have something new that they've not quite fully announced yet pertaining to podcasts. They're probably going to charge for it. I don't know, but I do not know. But XM killed Stitcher, which was a pretty cool podcast platform, in order to have a paid service. So I'm hoping that Google is not following suit with that. Like we don't have enough things to spend our money on. Unreal. But going to take a deep breath. and think about Suzanne Somers. And it's about 2, almost 3 in the morning in the East Coast as we're live on a work night. I had to go to my folks' house, or I wanted to rather, and help my dad with some wiring issues and play Scrabble with my mom over at their house. Played 5 games with her, and then I'm away from my phone, and then I get back to my phone and see that Suzanne Somers passed away. It was just quite a shock. And actually, before I got to my phone, there was a news alert on the television that was muted, and they were playing the wrong clip. They played a clip showing John Ritter of Three's Company and Joyce DeWitt, who played Janet, and it said Three's Company star passes away. And of course, over 20 years ago, John Ritter died. So I thought, oh my gosh, Joyce DeWitt passed. And then another headline popped up: Suzanne Somers dies at the age of 76, just a day before her 77th birthday. Unbelievable. She really made a difference. Of course, she's immortal thanks to video and film. And we're going to highlight her entire career tonight. But let's begin with an article about the beloved entrepreneur and actor Suzanne Somers. This is from the Los Angeles Times. Headline: Suzanne Somers, Three's Company, and step-by-step star dead at 76. This article was written by Carlos de Loera, and it was published on October 15th, 2023 at 5:19 Eastern Time. Here's from the article. Suzanne Somers, who became a household name after starring on the hugely popular TV sitcom Three's Company on ABC, I'm adding, died Sunday morning at her Palm Springs home. She was 76. Somers died of cancer just one day shy of her 77th birthday. The actor's spokesperson, R. Corey Hay, said, quote, Suzanne Somers passed away peacefully at home in the early morning hours of October 15th. She survived an aggressive form of breast cancer for over 23 years, unquote. Hay said in a statement provided to the Los Angeles Times that was shared on behalf of the actor's family. Quote, Suzanne was surrounded by her loving husband, Alan, her son, Bruce, and her immediate family, the statement read. Her family was gathered to celebrate her 77th birthday on October 16th. Instead, they will celebrate her extraordinary life and want to thank her millions of fans and followers who loved her dearly, unquote. That was a nice statement. Back to the article now. Suzanne Somers played Chrissy Snow, the effervescent blonde secretary on Three's Company alongside John Ritter and Joyce DeWitt from 1977 to 1981. She was dropped during the show's 5th season after a widely publicized salary dispute in which she reportedly asked for a raise from $30,000 an episode to $150,000 an episode, which would equal the pay of her male co-star John Ritter at that time. The actor, Suzanne Somers, who was born in San Bruno, California in 1946, would then go on to star in the ABC sitcom Step by Step alongside Patrick Duffy. Chance Bartel's interjecting here. Best known, of course, as portraying the character Bobby Ewing on Dallas for over 14 years on CBS and on TNT, and the cable revival of that show, of the revival of Dallas, which aired between 2012 and 2014 on TNT, Turner Network Television Cable Network, basic cable. What's interesting, again, I'm interjecting here, this isn't in the article about Step by Step, was that was an ABC sitcom. So obviously either the executives had retired and new people came in, or there were no grudges held for Suzanne Somers anymore pertaining to her salary increase and what led to her being dismissed from Three's Company. She was the most popular cast member on Three's Company at the time that she was let go. Now, Step by Step with Patrick Duffy ran from 1991 until 1997, so it had a pretty good run on its own in its own right there. Back to the article. Somers headlined a Las Vegas show in the 1980s at the Las Vegas Hilton. According to the actor, she performed 2 hours in 2 shows 7 nights a week. So 2 2-hour shows 7 nights a week. She reprised her role as Vegas entertainer in 2015 with a cabaret show titled Suzanne Sizzles. And she did. In the 1990s, her career became less about acting and more involved with selling her signature products, including exercise apparatus. I should have said unexercise apparatus. Bad grammar, dude. And where's the editor at the LA Times? I'll just correct it for you, buddy. Including unexercise apparatus, most famously the Thigh Master. It should say most famously called. It just says most famously, the Thigh Master. And she also sold jewelry and sugarless chocolates and diet books. Yeah, she was on the Home Shopping Club many times. I used to watch with my girlfriend and her mom, and oh man. And she put on a good show. Suzanne was a heck of a salesperson and had an excellent personality and a great, great laugh. Somers announced earlier this year that her breast cancer had returned. In 2001, in 2001 or 2001, Suzanne Somers revealed that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer in the previous year, in 2000. In an interview with the LA Times, she said she had surgery and radiation therapy, but declined to follow medical advice that she also have chemotherapy, electing instead to undergo homeopathic treatments. But earlier this year, in 2023, her breast cancer had returned. Quote, I had breast cancer 2 decades ago, and every now and then it pops up again, and I continue to bat it down, she said in a statement. Quote, I've used the best alternative and conventional treatments to combat it. This is not new territory for me. I know how to put on my battle gear, and I am a fighter, unquote. Following her initial cancer diagnosis, Suzanne Somers transformed a modest licensing business, first launched in the late 1980s with the Thigh Master, into a global merchandising machine. She wrote more than a dozen books on nutrition, on blending families, on aging, and surviving alcoholism. The Sexy Years, her first book on bioidentical hormones, published in 2004, sold 1 million copies in the first 3 months. Her 2007 book titled Ageless, which she was, I'm adding that in, debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list and stayed there for 6 weeks. Suzanne Somers' embrace of, reliance on, and public advocacy for alternative medicines and treatments, which most notably manifested in her cancer treatment, was criticized by medical groups, including the American Cancer Society. I'm going to interject here, your host Chance Bartels of the Nostalgic Podblast. How many billions of dollars has been donated by good-hearted people to try to eradicate specifically breast cancer, like the Komen, the pink ribbons? What has it done? Why is Suzanne Somers gone? Now, you may argue, well, she should have had the chemotherapy, whatever. Why is there not a palatable treatment for cancer? I'm talking breast cancer here. And let's just open it up to other forms of cancer. What are they doing with the money? Think about it, man. It's a business. And this is a nostalgia happy show, family show. Sometimes I go off the rails, like talking about Nightmare in Badham County, a guilty pleasure, scary movie that I like. But I'm really upset about Suzanne passing away. And I how dare this organization, which really, I don't see any results. Do you? For the American Cancer Society? Wow. Getting back to the article now. The She's the Sheriff actor got her start in show business in the late 1960s. Her first credited role was in the 1968 Steve McQueen film Bullet. She later gained more fame for her very small but notable appearance in George Lucas's 1973 movie, the classic American Graffiti, which I always thought was set in the 1950s. No, it was set in 1962 in Northern California, before Happy Days. And it was edited by George Lucas's wife, Marcia Lucas, who is an award-winning editor. I'm going to play a clip of Suzanne talking about how she earned the role of the blonde in American Graffiti in just a moment. And I'll play a little bit of the actual scene, just a minute or so. Now, after American Graffiti and before Three's Company, Suzanne Somers appeared in several TV series throughout the 1970s, such as The Rockford Files, Starsky and Hutch, and The $6 Million Man, before she landed her breakout role as Chrissy Snow. Let's listen to a little bit of American Graffiti. I'm going to play the classic scene. You'll hear a bit of Wolfman Jack in the scene, and Richard Dreyfuss, of course, obsessing on the girl he just saw, the beautiful blonde. Yeah, here it is. And I can't play all the clip because of the music, the bots. Hold on. Got to be careful because, the copyright bots are on a search and destroy mission trying to get me. They're after me, man. Let me just play a little bit of it. Any day now, Chance. Technology, ain't it great? Well, I may not be able to play. This is probably just as well because there's so much music in it, but I did want to play a little bit of Wolfman Jack talking. In this scene is also, of course, Ron Howard and Cindy Williams, who went on to star in the spinoff of Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley. I want to say this really quickly, that the success of this movie, which I'll briefly touch on, American Graffiti, led to Happy Days on TV in 1974 as a winter replacement series they tried in the middle of the 1973-74 television season. Of course, at first, it was a skit on Love American Style titled Love in the Television Set, which was renamed Love in the Happy Day for syndication. Originally, Love American Style was an hour show in the first year, and then it was cut to half an hour in season 2, then 1 hour in season 3, 4, and 5. And it wound up eventually being a part of the ABC Friday night power lineup of the Partridge Family, the Brady Bunch, Room 222, and Love American Style. Wow. But I want to mention Tom Bosley was not in the skit on Love American Style titled Love in the Television Set. Harold Gould played the father, Mr. Cunningham. You did have Ron Howard in there in that skit, and you also had in that segment Anson Williams as Potsy, but no Fonz. And there was a different actress playing little Joni, the little sister. And you had the older brother, Chuck. You had 3 different actors that played Chuck, but between the one in that skit and then 2 in the series before he disappeared altogether. But the network was not interested in a proposed series about nostalgia. The nostalgia specifically of the late 1950s or early 1960s until the success of American Graffiti. Then they renamed that segment Love in the Happy Day for reruns when they cut it to half an hour, the whole series. But now I'm going to play that clip of American Graffiti where it all began, which was the origin. This was the godfather for Happy Days, this film. Here we go. Let's play a little bit of it. Classic. There she is, Suzanne. Just a great part. Now I'm going to play Suzanne talking about.
Wait, what did you say? What did you say? Quick, quick, hang a right. What? Why? Steven, cut over to G Street. I just saw a vision. I saw a goddess.
All right, I'm going to stop it there because of the music. Let's listen to Suzanne herself talking about that role and how she got it. This is from Emmy TV Legends Foundation Interviews.
I got the role as the blonde in the T-Bird in American Graffiti. I get a call from Ann Brebner, the one who said, get your teeth straightened. And they want a blonde. And you have to go into San Francisco, and here's the address. Hangs up. She was never very friendly. And so I had to cross the Golden Gate Bridge, and I lived in Sausalito. That's 50 cents. And I didn't have any money. So I decided, I'm going to go. What are they going to do? Turn me back? Maybe they will, but I got to go. So I go across the bridge and get to the toll, and he said, 50 cents. And I said, oh gosh, I forgot my wallet. And he says, well, you have to leave something as collateral. So I said, how about a lipstick? I handed him a lipstick, and he said, that'll do. And so I started using lipsticks as my way to get across the bridge from there. And then I went, note to self, lipstick gets you across the bridge. I think today, I'm sure they still have a box full of my lipsticks. And I went into this interview, and I walk in, and it's a sea of blondes. Every blonde that lived in that area was in that room that day, and I had parking, I had dinner for the two. I mean, there just was no way I was going to have enough. I couldn't spend the time to wait. I was going to get a ticket because I parked illegally out in front, and so I said to the casting agent, I said, I can't stay, and everybody here is much better looking than me, and so I'm gonna go. And he said, well, George Lucas was very interested in your picture. I said, my picture? Why? He said, I don't know. He picked your picture out of all these pictures, so let me just go see if he'll see you. So he goes in, he comes out, he goes, come here. All these they're beautiful, these girls. I walk in, and George Lucas is sitting there, and he's slumped behind the desk. He's kind of not a big guy to begin with. So what I'm looking at is essentially a head. I'm kind of nervous, and he says, can you drive? And I said, yeah. He said, okay, thanks. So I leave the interview thinking, what a stupid, thank God I didn't stay. Can you drive? Oh my God, what a stupid question. Waste of my time. I get home, and the phone's ringing. And it's Ann Brebner, who's usually, hello, go to the hanging up. She goes, you got the part, you got the part. I said, what part? She said, you got the part of the blonde in the Thunderbird in American Graffiti. And so that's how that happened. Because I didn't live in Los Angeles, I didn't have any idea there was impact. I thought it was kind of a dumb movie. I didn't understand it. I remember the night that we shot American Graffiti, I'm in the makeup trailer, and in the trailer are all these other people. Richard Dreyfuss, Harrison Ford, Cindy Williams, Paul Le Mat, Ron Howard, Francis Coppola, George Lucas. Who am I missing? I don't know. And I remember sitting there thinking, not too impressive. Petaluma, a bunch of people who aren't really impressive looking. And it wasn't until Johnny Carson said that night on The Tonight Show, we've all been looking for who the mysterious blonde in the Thunderbird was, that I had an inkling of the impact. That, wow, because I guess everybody in that audience had seen it. That's why when I came out, it was, woo. It wasn't that I looked so great. It was, that's the blonde.
Thank you, American of Television, Archive of American Television. Sherry Dalton's out there watching live. Yes, it is 3 a.m. on a work night. Yes, let me read some of her comments. And if you want to call in, Sherry, talk about Suzanne Somers, feel free, or just comment. And hope it's okay. Let me just give you the number, 770-438-1050. I'm going to write that down, 770-438-1050. Bam! Yeah, so I didn't anticipate anyone to be up. I should have waited till tomorrow, but, I'm on this Pepsi caffeine. I know, should be Coca-Cola, right? I am in Atlanta. Bad. My grandparents gave me Pepsi, and they were in St. Louis, so that's, I know it's like sugar water. But anyway, I'm really blue about Suzanne Somers passing away. It's very unexpected, but I have a lot of good material to cover. I don't think I'll go like 4 hours. like usual. No, but I have some good audio of her with the great Tom Snyder. I have her classic Thigh Master ad and her singing and other things. But let me, with your permission, Sherry, I'm going to read some of your comments. Let's see what she said. Oh, she's off tomorrow. Good, good, good. She said, wow, you're up so late. Yep. She goes, I was shocked too. Oh, it just refreshed. I was shocked too about the passing of Suzanne Somers. I didn't know she had cancer. It came back. Yeah, she had it in 2000 and beat it, and then it returned. And she didn't want chemotherapy. Cool. She said, okay, yeah, feel free if you want to call in anytime. I'm just going to cover some stuff. But jump on in if you want, or just comment. Let me see what else she said. Am I the only one watching? There's something wrong with us. We should be asleep right now. LOL. Yeah, I know. Let me get back to what I wrote here real quick. I think that was pretty much the end of the article from the LA Times and Carlos de Lorea. But about American Graffiti, the running time was 112 minutes. It was released on August 11th, 1973 in the USA. It only cost $777,000 to make, but it earned $140 million at the box office. So, of course, it was a huge, huge success. Now, also, Suzanne Somers was in an episode of the American version of a sitcom called Lots of Luck, and she was the femme fatale in the early 1970s. And she appeared after the release of American Graffiti in the Rockford Files in 1974, and I think the 9th episode, maybe the 7th episode. And Julie Summers, by the way, who signed this for me, guest starred in the very first episode of the Rockford Files, season 1, episode 1, after the original movie of the week. She was in the first regular hourly episode. She was also in the first Harry O episode, starring the great David Jansen. But let's get back to the main topic, the passing of Suzanne Somers. So, did you know this? That she also had an uncredited role as a topless swimming pool girl in Magnum Force in 1973, one of the Dirty Harry movies starring Clint Eastwood. I think it was the second one after Dirty Harry, the second film including Dirty Harry. And she also guest starred in The $6 Million Man in the 1977 season 5 episode titled The Cheshire Project. She played a passenger on the very first episode of The Love Boat, which is streaming on Paramount Plus, as well as having a guest appearance in a 1976 episode of One Day at a Time, all before the debut of Three's Company. You know what? The $6 Million Man was actually out after Three's Company had already debuted. That aired and was shot during production of season 2 of Three's Company, but the others were before Three's Company. But she wasn't mega famous yet. Three's Company was just starting to air, and she was doing game shows. I'll play a clip of her on Match Game. She did only 6 episodes of the classic Match Game. She did 5 episodes of the CBS Match Game 77, which was taped on July 17th, 1977. Just as season 2 was gearing up of the Three's Company sitcom on ABC. And she did 1 episode, Match Game PM, which is the syndicated version. They taped all those in one day, 6 half-hour game shows of Match Game that she was on. I'm going to play a clip of Gene Rayburn meeting her for the first time and giving her a little kiss like Gene Rayburn would do for the new kid on the block, the new celebrity female player. He would do that. He'd get out his Banaka and spray his orangutan-looking mouth and lay one on the poor female. I'm kidding. I loved him. He was a great MC. She later, after the One Day at a Time episode aired in 1976, she, of course, landed her most famous role of the ditzy blonde, Chrissy Snow, and Chrissy stood for Christmas. Christmas Snow, as was revealed in the season 2 Christmas episode of Three's Company. And she actually was the third person to play Chrissy Snow after 2 pilots of Three's Company. And Susan Lanier had played her previously. Susan Lanier had been seen in Welcome Back, Kotter briefly. She was in Electra Woman and Dinah Girl. She was a very beautiful actress in her own right, but Fred Silverman chose Suzanne Somers over her. We'll get to that in just a second. He was the head of ABC, of course. He's a legendary person. He passed away in 2020, unfortunately. In 1977, she did another game show, which is really more like a talk show. I talk about it all the time here on the Podblast, Tattletales, and it hasn't aired on Buzzer yet. They're about almost done with 1976, and they'll get into 77 was a good year for Tattletales. Hasn't aired since the original air dates. You had I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to see this one. Deborah Winger, right when she was doing Wonder Woman as Drusilla, Wonder Woman's younger sister, on that program when it was on ABC. She did Tattletales before Urban Cowboy, before Officer and Gentleman, before Terms of Endearment, all that stuff. She was just a young woman in her 20s doing television appearances and acting in television shows. She done another movie. What was it called? It was like a Slumber Party 1957, I think is what it was called. But her first credit was introducing Deborah Winger as Drusilla on Wonder Woman, starring Linda Carter in season 1 of that program. Really, it was after it started as a series of TV movies Wonder Woman did, and then it became a weekly 1-hour series. And anyway, but I digress. But that was her first real credit, and I like how they did the throwback to that with Kevin Bacon on Disney Plus in the holiday special for Guardians of the Galaxy, introducing Kevin Bacon. I mean, it wasn't laugh out loud funny. I just thought it was kind of clever, That credit was in the movies of the 70s, like the King Kong movie with Jessica Lange. She had a special credit introducing Jessica Lange as Dwan, as did Jane Seymour in the first Roger Moore 007 film Live and Let Die. She had a special introducing Jane Seymour credit as Solitaire in that 1973 film. But getting back to Suzanne Somers, so she appeared with her husband, Alan Hamill, on Tattletales in 77. Can't wait to see that. I bet that's going to be funny. And that was hosted by Bert Convy, who sadly died in 1991 of a brain tumor. Suzanne Somers was cast in Three's Company in January 1977 after actresses Suzanne Zenner and Susan Lanier did not impress producers during the first 2 pilots. And Suzanne Somers was suggested by ABC president Fred Silverman, who had seen her in her initial appearance on The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson, and hired her the day before the taping of the 3rd and final pilot of Three's Company. Who could forget it? Jack Tripper's in the tub, and Chrissy runs a bath. Or was it Janet? One of them turns on the bath, not knowing he's in the tub, and he goes down in the water and, whoa, and comes up. Just great physical comedian and actor, John Ritter was. And what a sad thing. He died the same thing that killed his father, Tex Ritter. He had a tear in his aorta, terrible condition, and he pretty much died on the set of 8 Simple Rules to Dating My Teenage Daughter, the first starring vehicle of Kaylee Coco, before Big Bang Theory. Let's see here. So Chrissy was obviously played to be a dumb blonde. I'm reading from an article here. So no offense, don't write. This is just what this article says. But Suzanne Somers obviously played Chrissy Snow, a stereotypical dumb blonde who was employed as an office secretary. That is not true. In first, she wasn't as ditzy as she was as the series went along. By the time season 4, and really I'd say it was season 4, she was really painted as an imbecile. But she wasn't that way in the beginning. Nah, she was not. She just wasn't. Watch the friggin' show before you write stuff. Obviously, John Ritter and Joyce DeWitt starred in this comedy of errors about 2 single women living with a single man who pretends to be gay in order to bypass the landlord's policy of prohibiting single men sharing an apartment with a single woman. The program was an instant success in the ratings, eventually spawning a short-lived spin-off series, The Ropers, starring Norman Fell and Audra Lindley. Three's Company premiered on Tuesday, March 15th, 1977 at 9:30 p.m., right after the debut of 8 is Enough on that same network, ABC. 170 half-hour episodes of Three's Company were taped over 8 TV seasons and 2 one-hour episodes, including one one-hour Best of Three's Company special hosted by Lucille Ball. Now, about that spinoff, The Ropers, that launched in the middle of season 3 of Three's Company. So, in essence, it was a winter replacement show, which means a show that debuts instead of in the fall, in the winter after the new year, with just a handful of episodes to see how it does in the ratings. And it fared very, very well, The Ropers did. And Suzanne Somers appeared as Chrissy in the season 2 premiere of The Ropers, along with John Ritter and Joyce DeWitt. The Ropers, which first aired on ABC TV on Tuesday, March 13th, 1979 at 10 o'clock, right after Three's Company, had a great time slot. And it fared really well in the Nielsen ratings, hitting number 8 in the Nielsen ratings with a 25.2 share. But as many network executives do, they shift the time slot of a successful show, and those jerks moved it, The Ropers, to a terrible time slot of Saturday night at 8 p.m. for its second and final season, which caused the ratings to sink. It was perfect as a 1-hour power hour of Three's Company and then The Ropers. What the hell, man? But joining stars Norman Fell and Audra Linney in The Ropers were the hilarious Jeffrey Tambor, who later did The Larry Sanders Show and Archer and Arrested Development, as the snob next-door neighbor, realtor Jeffrey P. Brooks III. And Jeffrey's wife, Anne, played by Patricia McCormack, who as a child actor starred in the horror movie The Bad Seed, which would be a good pick for the Halloween season to watch if you've never seen that black and white movie. It's pretty spooky. 28 episodes were taped of The Ropers, and it gets a bad rap. I'll explain in just a second. But The Ropers, I'm repeating, it began during the second half of season 3 of Three's Company. Yeah. But The Ropers was a remake of the British show George and Mildred, which was a spin-off of a show called Man About the House, which itself was the original British show which Three's Company was based on. Despite the claims of the contrary of many on the internet, The Ropers was really funny in my opinion. Now, as of this writing, and this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast, I should say, The Ropers has yet to be released on home video in any format. The free over-the-air network Antenna TV airs The Ropers as part of their lineup on occasion, although they cut 3 minutes, they air episodes that have 3 minutes, over 3 minutes cut out of each and every episode to allow for more TV commercials to air in the 30-minute time slot. Now, Pluto TV has streamed The Ropers on demand, but those are the cut syndicated versions, and they're probably on Tubi TV by now as well. I'm talking about The Ropers, but they're edited. But there was a treat in 2004 to celebrate the release of The Ropers on DVD. TV Land had a marathon of Ropers episodes along with episodes of Three's Company, and they played them with things that hadn't been seen since their original air date, including the original opening credits, which was a longer piece than you saw in the syndicated version, where it shows the characters, and it's not a terribly impressive opening credit sequence, and the theme was just dreadful, the musical theme. But what was interesting was that the epilogues were restored, meaning the last scene, the last few minutes of the episode that ties everything together, almost always in the syndicated versions, those were cut. But I noticed in the TV Land versions, and I recorded them all. I had recorded them on VHS, Super VHS, which I've converted to DVD. I have a machine, a Toshiba machine, that will convert VHS to DVD. And what I did was I took the syndicated version and the TV Land version, because the TV Land version was edited as well, but it was edited differently. And it had scenes that hadn't been seen since the original air date. I know I'm repeating myself. So I sandwiched them together to form an uncut episode. But unfortunately, TV Land did not air every Ropers. It was just some episodes. Some of the better episodes of the Ropers aired on TV Land. So that was kind of cool. But I don't know why, if they released all 8 seasons of Three's Company, why won't they release the Ropers? I can understand not releasing Three's a Crowd. Talk about that in a moment. But you've probably seen biopics on Three's Company, whether it's an NBC movie from 20 years ago or something on the Reels channel, that tell the tale of how Norman Fell, who played Mr. Roper, didn't want to leave Three's Company. And so he was promised a guarantee. Okay, if it doesn't go for 2 years, you can come back to Three's Company. And of course, it lasted for 2 seasons. Only season 2 was a full season, though, of 22 episodes. So what happened was they did bring the Ropers back, but only for 1 episode called Night of the Ropers in season 5 of the Ropers. I thought it was season 6. No, it's season 5. And that aired on Tuesday, March 17th, 1981, almost exactly 2 years after the debut of their own spin-off show in 1979. So look for the Ropers if you want and judge for yourself. Don't listen to the internet trolls that say, oh, it was terrible. It was as funny as the Three's Company, the same formula. And I love the hot tub scene. They had like a rec room in the condominium neighborhood that they lived in, the Ropers, when he sold the apartment building, they bought this condo. And there was some funny stuff that happened in that hot tub. There was a hot tub girl, a semi-regular cast member, of course, buxom and beautiful. And Stanley was all lusting after this chick, this girl, this character. But we're talking about Suzanne Somers. I've been really sad. I know I sound like with the Mark Goddard tribute last week. I'm not trying to act like I don't care. Of course I care. I'm passionate about these actors, but I'm trying to be a little bit upbeat just in general. So don't think I'm not sad, because I'm very sad about the loss of Mark Goddard. Oh, I took the picture. And Suzanne Somers. And by the way, if you're listening at Fistful of Radio, I would encourage you to go to the YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast. I do some exclusive content on YouTube where I go live on YouTube, and it's a separate show, but the same material in most cases as what you're listening to or watching now. If you want to see some collectibles, and I'm going to show some nostalgic treats in a little bit that you'll remember very fondly from days gone by. Now, in the past, when I've talked about the Ropers, people have commented, "Holy crap, the Ropers were supposed to be in their 40s. They're supposed to be, in their 40s in age, and they look so old. Shoot, I'm in my 40s. Crap." Well, listen, don't fret. I'm not going to mention your name, because, by the way, in reality, Audra Lindley was 60 when Three's Company started. She would have been like 63 when the Ropers started, and Norman Fell was 53 when the Ropers made their first appearance on Three's Company in January 1977, so don't be so hard on yourself. Now, about the Ropers, and we'll move on and get back to talking about Suzanne Somers. I liked some of the new characters that were introduced into the Three's Company universe in the Ropers. People like Helen's snob sister, Ethel. Helen, Ethel! And they would fake like they're going to hug and embrace, and it'd be like an air handshake, like they wouldn't actually kiss. And she was played by the actress who played "It's Not Nice to Fool Mother Nature," the margarine ad. That was the actress who played Ethel. And then you also had the introduction of Helen Roper's mother, who was forgetful. And this actress was in Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari, God rest his soul. And she was in Halloween 2, of all things. She was making a sandwich at the beginning of Halloween 2. The second Michael Myers Halloween movie from way back in 1980. Give the Ropers a shot. If you like Three's Company, it's the same formula. Same laughs. Yeah, there's the occasional misunderstanding, but it was not as bad as these trolls let on. But I like these new characters. Okay, so do I want to play that terrible opening theme of the Ropers? I didn't do that in YouTube Live a moment ago, but I'm going to try to pull it up. What the hell? If you're going to do something, do it right. And I'm going to play some of the commercials that Suzanne Somers did. I won't mention the products yet, but hang on. Where are you, my little friend? And then we'll get into some of the other topics, like the salary dispute, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. Listeners, if I can't find this, then I'm just going to say F it. I don't know why I can't see it. Hang on a second. It was right there. Right there. Oh, you know what? I know where I'm going wrong. Good grief. I had a separate script for Facebook versus YouTube that I'd written. And I was looking at the YouTube one. My bad. And you won't believe some of the shows that Suzanne did also. I didn't mention yet, she was in The Dating Game long before Three's Company. And we're going to go through some of her credits in just a little while as I stall to find the Ropers opening credits. I'm about to give up in a sec. Oh, here it is. All right. Let's see if this is still available to listen to. That was the original longer network version for ABC, not the syndicated shorter version of that theme. For equal time, I'm going to play my favorite version of the Three's Company theme. I pulled this. This is Inside Baseball, but I recorded this back in 1991. A local station, WVEU TV 69 here in the Atlanta area, was airing the Ropers, and these were the old syndicated versions. And originally in syndication, way back when, they would sometimes have episodes of the Ropers with the Three's Company theme, and it would say Three's Company's Friends, the Ropers. They added that to the opening credits. And you typically run them with the Three's Company package. So the 28 episodes would be lumped in with Three's Company episodes, sometimes every other day. I remember in the early 80s watching them on a station before WVEU, WXIA. 11 Alive Atlanta ran them after school for a while. But here, I captured this from an old 1991 tape. And it's really the Three's Company theme, but it was dubbed over the syndicated opening of the Ropers. Does that make sense? I know it's confusing and stupid of me. But let me pull it up and play this for you now. Now, I want to explain, if you're watching on Facebook Live and it's not live anymore, and if ever there's like a silence, bots will mute this show, but the full audio, knock on wood, will be on YouTube and on the many audio platforms you can find this show. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. For now, they're going to go away in 2024 like Stitcher did, thanks to XM radio, satellite radio. You can find us on Podbean. You pretty much everywhere. And we're on Fistful of Radio. Our newest episode airs Saturday at 2 p.m., and that's Eastern time, Atlanta, Georgia time. And then overnights as well on Monday night and Wednesday night. And Sunday at 2, there's an encore presentation. So, about getting back to Suzanne Somers and Three's Company, when Three's Company began its 5th season in late 1980, that was the season after the Ropers went off the air. Somers demanded a hefty salary increase from $30,000 to $150,000 an episode, as well as a 10% ownership stake in the show's profits. Those close to the situation suggested that Suzanne Somers' rebellion was largely due to her husband, Alan Hamill's influences. After ABC denied her raise in salary, Suzanne Somers refused to appear in the 2nd and 4th episodes of season 5 due to excuses such as a broken rib. She finished the remaining season on her contract, however, but her role was decreased to just 60 seconds per episode, tacked on to the very end of the show, making a phone call from her parents' house, supposedly. And she calls her friend's apartment from her parents' home. She's taking care of her dad, who was played by Peter Mark Richmond, or Mark Richmond. He played Reverend Snow. And she was on a separate soundstage. I mean, things got so bitter with the other cast members and the crew that, and this is a fact, she had to tape that in a separate set, and she wanted to go on the main soundstage, and they said, nope, can't do it. Sorry, Suzanne. Um, After ABC fired Suzanne Somers from Three's Company and terminated her contract, Somers sued ABC for $2 million, saying her credibility in show business had been damaged. The lawsuit was settled by an arbitrator who decided Somers was owed $30,000 due to a single missed episode for which she had not been paid. Future rulings also favored ABC and the producers. Somers says she was fired for asking to be paid as much as popular male television stars of the day, such as Alan Alda on MASH and Carol O'Connor on All in the Family. What do you think? Do you think she deserved a raise? I do. I don't know about that much, 30,000 to 150,000, but that's all ancient history now. And sadly, she's no longer with us. But let's see where. Suzanne Somers also, this was a very controversial thing that happened, and she was not happy about it. She had done a nude pictorial in 1970 in Playboy. And so Somers appeared, actually, Suzanne Somers did, in two Playboy cover feature nude pictorials, one in 1980 and one in 1984. Her first set of nude photos were taken by photographer Stan Malinowski in February 1970 when Somers was a struggling model and actress, and she did a test photo shoot for Playboy. She was accepted as Playmate candidate in 1971, but declined to pose nude before the actual shoot. During an appearance on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, she denied ever posing nude, except for a high society topless photo, which prompted Playboy to publish the photos from 1970 Malinowski shot a decade earlier. And they published them in 1980. Suzanne Somers' original motivation for posing nude was to be able to pay for medical bills related to injuries her son Bruce Jr. suffered in a car accident. By the time the photos were published, her son was 14, and Suzanne Somers feared that seeing his mother nude would be difficult for him. Suzanne Somers sued Playboy and settled for $50,000, which was donated to charity, with at least $10,000 of that award going to Easter seals. The second nude pictorial was by a different photographer named Richard Fegley, Fegley, and that appeared in the December 1984 Playboy issue in an attempt by Suzanne Somers to regain her diminished popularity after the Three's Company debacle in 1981. Despite her anger and earlier lawsuit, Playboy approached her earlier that year to pose nude a second time. Initially, she was angered again, but eventually agreed after discussing it with her family. She felt it would have a better chance. She felt she would have a better chance to control the quality of the photos the second time, since she was a name at that point, and having such control was an important condition that Suzanne Somers attached to posing nude for Playboy. Despite Suzanne Somers' earlier belief that her son would not want to see his mother nude, her then 18-year-old son did view the second pictorial. That's in an article. Okay, that's TMI. Too much information. Didn't need to know that. Sorry I said that. In 1983, Suzanne Somers, and by the way, I want to talk about the Playboy. That really damaged her reputation because she was a spokesperson for Ace Hardware, the helpful hardware man. I'm going to play a commercial in a minute, and for Lifesavers, candies, and other products. So Ace Hardware dumped her after the Playboy scandal. Let's flash forward to, I'm going to play a couple. She can sing really well. I'm going to play a 1979. Before this happened with the Playboy business in 1980, I'm going to play a 1979 commercial that Suzanne did for Ace. Actually, 1.5 commercials. These are just 30 seconds in length. The other one's pretty visual. It's set up like it's a silent movie with the cards you have to read, so that won't do much for the listener. But she does sing at the end, so I'll play the little bit at the end where she sings. Let me find this now for you. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I want to play the right one. Let's listen to this nice commercial. It's a Christmas spot for Ace Hardware.
Ace Hardware presents Suzanne Somers.
A wonderland of gift ideas makes Ace the Christmas place. Come find your favorite brand names for friends and family. Picked by the helpful hardware man to put beneath your tree. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware man. He's my favorite Santa. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware man.
Isn't that cute? I love that. And she could sing really well. I got to acknowledge some comments from Sherry Dalton, who's watching live. Thank you, Sherry, for hanging in there. I know I get a little monotonous. And I'm going to play the very end. Let me cue this up, and I'll read your comments.
Ace Hardware Theater presents Santa's Little Helper.
Okay, that was a memorable one. She comes down the stairs looking like a little kid.
Face one of life's little...
All right. Let me read these comments. So she says, Sherry Dalton says, I loved American Graffiti. It seemed like literally everyone was in it. Yes, they were. Ron Howard. Sherry also says, I would think that Suzanne Somers would have competed in those cheesy Battle of the Network Stars shows on ABC. Remember those? I sure do, and I loved them. Heather Thomas and Heather Locklear together was quite a sensation, or caused a sensation in me when I was going through the change. Anyway, Sherry Dalton asks, who did you like better, Chance, the Ropers or Mr. Furley? That's a tough question. I liked them each. And that's why I like the Night of the Ropers episode, because they could interact with each other in that season 5 episode where they're back at their old apartment trying to get a good night's sleep. And then Ralph Furley comes into the bedroom. Yeah, that's, I got to go with the Ropers, though. If I had to make an absolute choice, because you had Don Knotts in the Andy Griffith Show, you know, he was a known person. Norman Fell was a serious actor. He played a cop. He was typecast as a policeman before Three's Company came along. He was in Dan August, which is a show that lasted only 1 year, a Quinn Martin show with Burt Reynolds. He played like a police flatfoot in that, Norman Fell did. And he was in a Bionic Woman episode right at the start, right before Three's Company started, at the beginning of the 1976-1977 television season on ABC, same network as Three's Company. Because in the middle of that season, that's when Three's Company started. As I already said, in January 77. Same night as 8 is Enough. Sherry Dalton says, I belong to a Three's Company group on Facebook called The Regal Beagle. And someone in that group said that in the opening credits / theme song of the show, the sexy brunette woman that we only see from the back, that walks by when Jack falls off the bike, right, is actually Suzanne Somers wearing a brunette wig. Do you know if that's true? I can't confirm that. I would have heard that, I would think. I don't know, though, so I can't say. Wow, great comment, Sherry. Get back to what I've prepared for you all. Oh, I got to play her singing at the end of that cute commercial. And these are on YouTube. Just look up, that's what I did, look up Suzanne Somers Ace Hardware, and you can see these spots. Let's listen to her singing at the end.
Gift needs.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware man.
You know, it's kind of silly how they had to change it to the helpful hardware folks to be PC or whatever. Come on now. Why has everyone got to be offended? That's what, and I talked last week. I'll touch on it later when I get to Loki season 2. Disney, as of 2015, have banned the use of cigarettes and tobacco products in all of their Marvel Comics productions and Star Wars. Star Wars doesn't bother me because aside from the cantina in the original Star Wars with the hookahs, these 2 alien chicks were smoking a hookah, it's not been an issue. You know, Battlestar Galactica is where you had tobacco with Starbucks smoking those little cheap-looking cigars. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to play another commercial for a different product that Suzanne Somers endorsed until the terrible Playboy scandal. And she did this with her father. I think I already have it right here. Oh, I can't wait to play that for you. I'm just looking at the clips I pulled. Oh, boy. And I'm going to play a little bit of her on Match Game and then a great interview with Tom Snyder. I was on the Tom Snyder Show September 20th, 96 as a caller talking with Tom. I cracked him up. Anyway, here, let's listen to this, a Lifesavers commercial. If I can get it to play. Come on. Oh, no, that's not the right one, you silly goose.
Mommy.
That's one I'm going to play later in the show. Okay. Here it is. I love this. This is a classic television commercial. You'll remember it.
Hey, watch this.
Lifesavers Roll Candy takes Suzanne Somers back home.
I did that better when I was a kid here in San Bruno, California. Because my dad would give me cherry Lifesavers for every cartwheel. So I did lots of them. Because I'd do anything for Lifesavers candy. And Dad. You see, good Lifesavers, they're like coming home again to San Bruno. I still love them both.
So he'd kicked the alcoholism at that point in time. Her dad's, he was a senior citizen in that commercial from 1979. Oh, man. Good stuff. Now, we've got to talk about this life-changing thing, and then we'll get back to her other shows like She's the Sheriff and Step by Step. But who could forget this? And this is, I guess, sexist by today's standards.
Great legs.
Thank you.
How do you get them?
I used to do aerobics till I dropped. Then I found Thigh Master. Every single time you squeeze Thigh Master, you strengthen and tone right where you need it. So it's easy to squeeze your way to shapely hips and thighs. I thought I'd never fit into these jeans again. Thank you, Thigh Master.
I recommend it and use it.
The secret to shapely thighs is exercising these muscles with just the right resistance. This balanced resistance coil is designed to give you results quickly and comfortably. Want to tone your upper chest and arms? Thigh Master will give you excellent results. Thigh Master. We may not have been born with great legs, but now we can look like we were.
To order your Thigh Master, call 1-800-421-2000. Have your credit card ready or send check or money order for $19.95 plus $4.50 for shipping and handling to this address. No CODs, please. If you're not fully satisfied, return it in 30 days for your money back. Plus, if you call right now, we'll also send you Suzanne's Slender for Life plan absolutely free. So call now for quick delivery.
Had to leave that in because they mentioned Atlanta, Georgia. We all knew someone like Suzanne that had that wonderful personality and that laugh. She had a great laugh, great smile. I just liked her. She just seemed like someone you'd want to be around a lot, So, as you just heard, in the early 1990s, she was the spokeswoman in a series of infomercials and commercials for the Thigh Master. The Thigh Master. A piece of exercise equipment which was squeezed between one's thighs above the knees, as you heard in that commercial. Now, I'm trying to do this in chronological order. Before that, the last primetime episode of Three's Company aired on ABC on September 18th, 1984, which transitioned into the spinoff Three's a Crowd, which only lasted 1 year. The Ropers lasted 2 seasons. And that first episode of Three's a Crowd aired 1 week later, after the final episode of Three's Company on September 25th, 1984, in the same time slot of Tuesday night at 8:30. It started at 9:30. Then 8 is Enough came and went at the end of the 80-81 season, and Three's Company's time slot shifted earlier in the night. 2 complaints from me, your humble host, Chance Bartels, about the way Three's Company ended. One, and I'm not alone in saying this, so it's not terribly original, but it's what I really think and feel. Jack should have married Janet instead of that new flight attendant character, Vicky, played by Mary Catterett. I just should have been Janet, the originals. Complaint 2, Janet should have been the one to turn out the lights in the apartment in that final shot of the last regular Three's Company episode instead of Terry, because Janet was the original tenant even before Jack. He was a guest at a party who just glommed on, and fit in because he was a good cook. You know the rest. You know that show. But it should have been Janet. At least give Janet. So Janet got screwed twice. She didn't get the final shot, turn out the light, and she didn't wind up with Jack. So, Now, getting back into chronological order, let's talk about She's the Sheriff. At the height of Suzanne Somers' exposure, Somers made her first return to a television show, although not on a television network, In 1987, she starred in the sitcom She's the Sheriff, which ran in first-run syndication, as did the final seasons of Too Close for Comfort and other shows. That was a thing in the mid-1980s and the latter end of the 1980s, to have shows that failed on networks be given a second chance, like Mama's Family. That happened with Mama's Family. It happened with It's a Living with Ann Gillian, just to name some examples. But She's the Sheriff was a new show in first-run syndication, and Suzanne Somers portrayed a widow with 2 young kids who decided to fill the shoes of her late husband, a sheriff of a Nevada town. Kind of sounds like Alice, right? Where her truck-driving husband died, and so she's got to take care of business for her son. She's a Sheriff ran for 2 seasons. Now, in 1990, around the time of these Thigh Master ads, Suzanne Somers returned to network TV, appearing in numerous guest roles and made-for-TV movies, mostly for ABC, which is ironic. That was the network she sued. So either the executives changed hands, which, they did. Fred Silverman was long gone from ABC at that point in time. The one who discovered her and recommended her, and the one who basically let her go when she wanted too much money. So that's kind of interesting. And obviously it's for that reason I just stated. There were different executives. And maybe some that were there said, you know what, that's water under the bridge. Let's give her another chance. So Suzanne's roles in these TV movies and guest roles, including the movie titled Rich Men, Single Women, attracted the attention of Lorimar Television. Lorimar is the group that produced Dallas for CBS in its network run. And it produced 8 is Enough and other shows. Was it Family Lorimar? Oh, Steve Russo, if you're out there, comment away. But Suzanne got the attention of Lorimar Television and Miller Boyett Productions, who were developing a new sitcom. And Suzanne Somers had starred in the film with Heather Locklear, who inadvertently directed the focus of both production companies to Suzanne Somers due to Locklear's starring role on Going Places from Lorimar and Miller Boyett Productions. For Lorimar, this was asking Somers back, since they alone had produced She's the Sheriff. In September 1991, Suzanne Somers returned to series TV on the ABC television network in Step by Step, co-starring with Patrick Duffy, who had played Bobby Ewing for Lorimar on Dallas all those years. And he came back on TNT for those 3 years as well. That was cool. When TNT revived Dallas in 2011 through 2014. And that show, Step by Step, really became successful, especially with ABC's youth-oriented TGIF lineup. Thank God It's Friday. Along with Urkel and Family Matters, they had a whole lineup. And it was really a ratings winner with young folks. So a week after the premiere of Step by Step, a 2-hour biopic of Suzanne Somers starring the actress herself entitled Keeping Secrets, based on her first autobiography, the same title, was broadcast on ABC. The movie chronicled Suzanne Somers' troubled family life and upbringing, along with her subsequent rise to fame. Playing off her rejuvenated career, Somers also launched a daytime talk show in 1994, aptly titled Suzanne Somers, which lasted 1 season. But Step by Step continued on ABC until the end of its 6th season in 1997, whereupon the series moved to CBS that fall for what turned out to be its final season. That happened a lot, when we were younger. I think the most successful one was Wonder Woman, because it lasted for 2 more years after ABC canceled it, and then it went to CBS. But like the Bionic Woman left ABC for NBC, lasted 1 year. Other examples too, where a show will change networks and it won't make it, like Different Strokes. It left NBC for ABC, and then it was gone after that year. So anyway, that was the case with Step by Step. It just lasted 1 year on that other network. With her sitcom now airing on CBS, Step by Step, Suzanne Somers was chosen to co-host the network revival of Candid Camera with Peter Funt, Alan Funt's son. Remember Candid Camera? I like the 70s version with Fannie Flagg from Match Game, and now she wrote the book in the play Fried Green Tomatoes. Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean about James Dean. She's a great writer. And Fanny Flagg had a small part that got cut down in Grease, the original Grease movie, but I digress. I loved Candid Camera. It was much better than Ashton Kutcher's version on MTV, Punk'd, which he's credited as co-creating. He didn't create that, man. Alan Funt created that whole concept. Anyway. But Suzanne Somers got into the act, and I'm going to play a clip of her in just a moment promoting Candid Camera with the great Tom Snyder, and they take a couple phone calls, and I love it when callers call in, or when they would, when that show was still on the air. The Late Late Show with Tom Snyder, which was produced by Worldwide Pants, David Letterman's company. So from 1997 to 1999, Suzanne Somers co-hosted that revised Candid Camera show when CBS chose to bring it back with Peter Funt. Suzanne Somers stayed for 2 years before PAX TV. Remember PAX TV? I think they're gone. PAX, it was like religious programming, but they also played 8 is Enough and classic TV back in like 1999 and 2000, years ago. But PAX TV renewed the Candid Camera show without Suzanne Somers. Shame on them. In a moment, you'll hear Suzanne promoting the show with Tom Snyder. I know I just said that. Sorry. When I go off script, that's why I repeat. I'm like, anyway. Now, this is serious. Around that time, Suzanne Somers was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in April 2000, and she had a lumpectomy to remove the cancer, followed by radiation therapy. Suzanne Somers and her Three's Company co-star John Ritter reconciled their friendship after 20 years of not speaking to each other, shortly before John Ritter's untimely death in 2003, over 20 years ago. He pretty much passed away on the set of 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter, which was Kaylee Cuoco's starring vehicle before The Big Bang Theory. And he had an issue with his aorta. I won't get into that. That was really sad. And by the way, I was talking to my buddy Hunter on the phone privately. He won't my sharing this story about the movie Problem Child, where John Ritter met his wife, Amy Yazbek, and she's still grieving his loss to this day, over 20 years later. And Gilbert Gottfried was in that movie. Michael Richards was in that movie just before Seinfeld started, before he's Kramer. And that first shot, remember where someone abandons the problem child as an infant on someone's doorstep. It's raining, it's night, right after the Universal logo. And, oh God, it's so funny. And it's so bad. Like, the guy rings the bell, lays the basket with the kid on the doorstep, and a woman opens the door and she goes, "It's a baby, how cute." And the baby pees in her mouth. It's obviously not real. It's water. We know it's not real, but it was just so crude. You couldn't do that today. That was hilarious. And then it's just a great shot. They must have done 20 takes to get the perfect shot, which they did, of that baby peeing in this poor lady's face who's trying to be sweet to the baby. And then you hear George Thorogood's classic guitar. I love that movie. And that kid was good who played the problem child who was kicked out of every Catholic orphanage around and returned. Oh, man. That was a funny movie. Jack Warden was funny in it as John. Is my mic hot? I should put my headphones on. Jack Warden played John Ritter's character's dad in that, and he had like a chain of sporting goods stores. I just love that movie. I need to watch that again. I hadn't seen that in years. I saw that in theater. I was laughing my ass off at that movie, Problem Child. Didn't like the second one as much, where you had a female problem child, not for that reason, but because there's a gross out scene with roaches, and they're really crushing roaches. It's just, if you're eating, I'm sorry, I won't go into they get in a salad. The kids, the problem kids, put bugs, roaches, in the. It's not funny. It's just disgusting. I'll never watch Problem Child 2, but I'll watch the first one. Let's get back to Suzanne Somers here. So I'm glad she reconciled with John Ritter. Before John Ritter passed away. In the summer of 2005, Suzanne Somers made her Broadway debut in a one-woman show titled The Blonde and the Thunderbird, a collection of stories about her life and career. The show was supposed to run until September, but was canceled in less than a week after poor reviews and disappointing ticket sales. She blamed the harsh reviews from the New York Times. And listen to this. The New York Times referred to her and her play as, quote, a drab and embarrassing display of emotional exhibitionism masquerading as entertainment, unquote. And here's what the New York Post had to say, quote, this is what Suzanne Somers responded to the New York Times, to the New York Post. Suzanne Somers said, these men, meaning the New York critics, are curmudgeons, and maybe I went too close to the bone for them. I was lying there naked, and they decided to kick me and step on me, just like these visions you see in Iraq, unquote. On January 9th, 2007, the Associated Press reported that a wildfire in Southern California had destroyed Suzanne Somers' Malibu home. In 2012, Suzanne Somers began an online talk show called Suzanne Somers Breaking Through at Cafe Mom. 3 of the episodes featured a reunion and reconciliation with former Three's Company co-star Joyce DeWitt, who'd played Janet Wood on Three's Company, the florist. The two had not seen or spoken to each other in 31 years. Suzanne Somers and Joyce DeWitt briefly discussed John Ritter and how glad they were. They both had spoken to him shortly before his untimely sudden death. Now in 2012, we saw the coming of The Suzanne Show in the fall of that year. The Suzanne Show, hosted by Suzanne Somers, aired for a 13-episode season on the Lifetime Network. Somers welcomed various guests, covering a wide range of topics related to health and fitness. During this period of her career, she also performed for U.S. servicemen overseas. That's pretty cool. Put the headphones on. It sounds like this thing's hot. Hello, check, check, check. On February 24th, 2015, Suzanne Somers was announced as one of the stars participating on the 20th season, hogwash, it wasn't really the 20th season, of Dancing with the Stars. The reason I say that is they have multiple Dancing with the Stars per year, so it's really like the 10th season. I mean, in real time, when I think of a season, I think year. But anyway, I digress. But on February 24th, 2015, Suzanne Somers was announced as one of the stars participating in the 20th season of Dancing with the Stars. Her partner was professional dancer Tony Dovolani. Somers and Dovolani were eliminated on the 5th week of competition and finished in 9th place overall. Calling her a legend in the industry on May 2nd, 2014, Direct Marketing Response inducted Suzanne Somers into the Infomercial Hall of Fame. Suzanne Somers supported bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Her book, titled Ageless, included interviews with 16 practitioners of biomedical hormone therapy, but gives extra discussion to one specific approach called the Wiley Protocol. Somers and T.S. Wiley, the originator of the Wiley Protocol, were criticized for their advocacy of the Wiley Protocol. A group of 7 doctors, all of whom utilize bioidentical hormone therapies to address health issues in women, issued a public letter to Suzanne Somers and her publisher Crown Publishing, in which they stated that the protocol is, quote, scientifically unproven and dangerous, unquote, and cite Wiley's lack of medical and clinical qualifications. See here now, you're not qualified. The use of bioidentical hormone therapies is a very controversial area of medicine. It's never been tested, and numerous groups have expressed concern over its safety and the misleading claims made by practitioners, which was the subject of an Associated Press article. I'm going to read some of that real quick, just a paragraph. The problem for many doctors, these custom compounded products are not approved by the Food and Drug Administration. Somers, whose hormone regimen involved creams, injections, and some 60 supplements daily, got a huge boost earlier this year by Oprah Winfrey. Quote, many people write off Suzanne as a quackadoo, Oprah Winfrey said when Suzanne Somers appeared on her show. Quote, but she just might be a pioneer. Yet Oprah Winfrey's support of Somers gave her some of the worst press of her career. Crazy Talk, Newsweek magazine headlined in an article on the talk show host earlier this year. Another headline on Salon.com was titled or said, Oprah's Bad Medicine. Now, Suzanne Somers at the Heart Truth's Red Dress Collection fashion show in 2011, she said that in 2001, here's what happened in 2001. She broke her silence about cancer. In 2001, Suzanne Somers was diagnosed with breast cancer. She had a lumpectomy, we've already talked about that, and radiation, but declined to undergo chemotherapy. In November 2008, Suzanne Somers announced that she was diagnosed with inoperable cancer by 6 doctors, but she learned a week later she was misdiagnosed by the doctors that know it all. During this time, she interviewed doctors about cancer treatments, and these interviews became the basis of her book titled Knockout, about alternative treatments to chemotherapy. See, that's a big business, that chemotherapy, Jack. In her book Knockout, Somers promoted alternative cancer treatments for which she was criticized by the American Cancer Society. Riddle me this, Batman. Like I said earlier, what are you doing with all those billions of dollars for research? Have we seen any advancement? Yes, we have seen additional treatment and drugs. There's no cure. There's no... If you get cancer, in most cases, you're going to die if you don't catch it soon enough. If you catch it early and have surgery, yes. And I'm no medical man. I'm just speaking off the cuff. It's what I believe. These are my opinions, okay? Chance Bartell's host of your Nostalgic Podblast, the Nostalgic Podblast. I'm going to read what the American Cancer Society said, who's just, in my opinion, squandering the money. Like, I hate to mention Komen, with the pink ribbons. What cure? God, where's the money going? The American Cancer Society is concerned, quote, I'm very afraid that people are going to listen to her message and follow what she says and be harmed by it, says Dr. Otis Brawley, the organization's chief medical officer. That means he's loaded. Filthy rich. We use current treatments because they've been proven to prolong life. They've gone through a logical, scientific method of evaluation. I don't know if Suzanne Somers even knows if there is a logical, scientific method. Ooh, burn, you bastard. More broadly, Brawley is concerned that in the United States, people will stop paying him money. No, I'm kidding. That in the United States, celebrities or sports stars feel they can use their fame to dispense medical advice. There's a tendency to oversimplify medical messages. Well, oversimplification can kill. Man, what a ham-handed statement. I hate pompous people like that sermonize, and they're probably crooked. On the take, baby. On the take. Now, Suzanne Somers was also opposed to water fluoridation, fluoride in tap water, calling fluoride a, quote, toxic waste byproduct of the aluminum manufacturers, unquote. Now, I can speak to this, Chance Bartels. I worked for Crystal Springs Water Company in a sales capacity in the late 1990s, in 97 and 98, and I was thoroughly trained. For those that don't know, in tap water, there can be, if it hasn't been filtered properly with a 5-micron filter, or 1-micron filter, or 0.5-micron filter, there's a parasite called Cryptosporidium, which here in the state of Georgia back in 1996, the year that Atlanta had the Olympic Games, caused an outbreak. in their municipal water supply. And what cryptosporidium, the parasite, can do is really cause problems for the elderly and small children. It can cause death in the elderly, malaria-like symptoms. It's not pleasant. And about this fluoride, I remember when I was there, Crystal Springs developed something called Kids Water, spelled Kidz, where they added fluoride. Because in case you don't know, spring water, purified drinking water, and distilled water, which is free of dissolved solids, does not contain fluoride. So what Crystal Springs did was add fluoride for the benefit of the children. The thing is, this is Chance Bartel speaking, not a medical man, but this is just common sense. When you brush your teeth, don't you rinse with tap water? You may not swallow, but you rinse with it. Well, that's got fluoride in it to help your teeth. So why would you need to add fluoride to spring water or drinking water? It doesn't make sense because you don't want to ingest it. You want it on your teeth. You get it when you rinse. I do. I mean, actually, what I started doing, I don't do that anymore. I don't put any tap water. I haven't had tap water since 1997. I have not had tap water or microwave food since 1997. I don't use a microwave. I think that causes cancer. And unfortunately, I'm not a fast food junkie, but on occasion I'll get like something at Burger King on the go. Sometimes they're microwaving food. I don't think Chick-fil-A does that though. But anyway, that's why you are what you eat, as the old idiom says. Oh, I should have written that one down as a nostalgic expression of the week. It's true. You are what you eat. Oh, I shouldn't tell this dirty joke I wrote about. Never mind. Oh, brother. In January 2013, Suzanne Somers suggested that Adam Lanza, this is very controversial, went on a shooting spree at Sandy Hook Elementary School due to the level of toxins in his diet and the household cleaners he was exposed to. There were a lot of reasons there. He suffered from autism, and I do think that was real. I can't stand these psychos that say that never happened. And this is a happy nostalgia show. I'm just going to leave it at that. So I don't stand behind this. But look, I'm just reporting a biography to you about the great Suzanne Somers, whom we just lost recently in 2023. Following a reoccurrence of cancer, Suzanne Somers died peacefully at her home in Palm Springs, California, on Sunday, October 15th, 2023, a day before her 77th birthday. Going to play a clip of her on Match Game in just a second, but I just want to review her IMDb list of credits, just some of them, and then I'm going to play the first time that host of the original Match Game, Gene Rayburn, met Suzanne Somers, and the only day they ever interacted, because she taped all 6 of her shows on July 17th, 1977. So, of course, we already talked about Bullet. That was her first role as woman, uncredited. And then she was in another role as Sidewalk Extra in Daddy's Gone A-Hunting in 1969. In 1970, she played Woman at Baptism, uncredited in Fools. And then came American Graffiti in 1973 on the big screen as the Blonde and the T-Bird. Then she did the Pool Girl role, which was uncredited in Magnum Force with Clint Eastwood in 1973. Talked about this. Lots of Luck in 1974 as Gloria. Then she acted in The Rockford Files that same year, 1974, in the Season 1, Episode 7 episode titled The Big Ripoff, which is available on DVD. Oh, God. I'm about to cause an accident here. I have that DVD set here a little bit off camera. Hold on. I get confused. Did I mention this on YouTube Live or here on Facebook Live? But Julie Summers was the first guest star in the very first aired episode, 1-hour episode of The Rockford Files. But there's Season 1 on DVD. Only $9.99 I paid back at Best Buy when they still had DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff like that. So, all right. So after The Rockford Files, she did a TV movie called Sky Heist in 1975, playing a female reporter. Then she did One Day at a Time, playing Sandra in 1976 in an episode. Let me see what season. I think it was season 1. I remember seeing it about a year ago. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know Suzanne Somers did this. And I saw Mark Hamill in a season early One Day at a Time episode right about just months before Star Wars was released. And it was his old face before his terrible car wreck of January 77 where he had plastic surgery and stuff. Damn, usually it will tell me the gosh blessed season. I'm probably just not seeing it. It's probably staring me right in the frickin' face. I have to consult an episode guide, but oh, I see what I did wrong. Just a second, folks. Oh, please don't okay, I thought I was going to restart. Okay, refresh. All right, yes, she was in the 11th episode, season 1, episode 11 of One Day at a Time, Julie's Job. Remember when they got rid of the boyfriend? I like that guy, the lawyer that Masur played. Anyway, I'm digressing. He left at the start of season 2 of One Day at a Time. Anyway, after One Day at a Time, she played Party Girl in the 1977 movie Billy Jack Goes to Washington. And then she was in the very first episode of The Love Boat, which you could stream on Paramount Plus. Season 1, episode 1. In the first year of Love Boat, they didn't show the faces of the guest stars. It just had the written credit, I liked it when they put their faces on. And then she was in 3 episodes of Starsky and Hutch between 1975 and 1977. And if you haven't seen the episode Linda Carter and Starsky and Hutch, you should check it out. My buddy Hunter loved that. He told me about it recently. It's streaming, I think, on Tubi TV. He's like, you got to check this out, man. Or it might be Prime. I think it's on Amazon Prime. God, IMDb, why is it, this could be a fake rant. Why is it when a website revamps, it always almost always is less efficient? Whether it's eBay, YouTube. YouTube's gotten better, but Facebook certainly. It's like they have busy work for their techs, and then someone screws something up. They make it where you have to take an extra step to do what you did before in one click. You know what I'm saying? All right, here's the Starsky and Hutch episode. She was in the very first Starsky and Hutch. I did not know that. Playing Sally Ann Sloan in Savage Sunday, the very first episode of Starsky and Hutch. I was forbidden to watch that when I was a little kid. Mom said it's too violent, can't watch it. And she told the babysitter, don't let him watch Starsky and Hutch. He's going to try because he likes the car. Don't let him watch it. And then she was in the season 2 episode titled The Vampire, which was a Halloween episode. Season 2, episode 7, she played Linda Offenbecker. And then in season 3, in 1977, she was in season 3, episode 4, titled Murder Ward as Jane Hutton. Okay, so that's her stint on Starsky and Hutch. And she did a TV movie, Ants, as Gloria. I already talked about the $6 Million Man episode from season 5 called The Cheshire Project, season 5, episode 11. She was already doing season 2 of Three's Company at that point in time. She was in a TV movie, Happily Ever After, in 1978, playing Maddie. She was in Zuma Beach as Bonnie Cat, a TV movie from 78. And this was around the time, like I said, she was in Match Game. I'm going to play a clip in a minute, but she didn't do Family Feud. All the stars of Three's Company, including the Ropers, including John Ritter, including Joyce DeWitt, competed for charity against other stars of other shows that were hot shows. And the Family Feud got killer ratings. It was a primetime special on ABC, and it was a phenomenon. Richard Dawson never looked back at Match Game. Never looked back. And they wouldn't let him promote Family Feud on daytime Match Game because daytime Match Game was on CBS and his daytime Family Feud was on ABC. But they did let him promote it in Match Game PM because that was syndicated to various stations all across the country. It could have been an ABC affiliate, a CBS or NBC affiliate, or an independent station. So you would notice on Match Game PM, it would say, from Family Feud, Richard Dawson. That's a terrible impression of the great Johnny Olson, the announcer of the original Match Game. But let's get back to the main topic here. In 1979, she was in the season 2 premiere of The Ropers. And then also in 79, she was in Yesterday's Hero. In 1980, she was in Nothing Personal as Abigail Adams. And then, of course, she was in 100 episodes, an even 100 episode of Three's Company between 1977, the very beginning, and 1981. She was in Hollywood Wives in 3 episodes in 1985. So we're getting near the end of the list here. She was in Goodbye Charlie in 1985. It was a TV movie. She was in another TV movie, Totally Minnie, like Minnie Mouse in 1988. And Then she did 44 episodes of She's the Sheriff in syndication between 1987 and 1989. Then she did a TV movie titled Rich Men, Single Women in 1990 as Paige. 91, she did Keeping Secrets, a TV movie that got ABC's attention as herself. She did, in 1992, a TV movie called Exclusive, playing a character named Marcy Singer. And then she was in Sisters in an uncredited roles herself in 1993. Also in 93, she did The Larry Sanders Show as herself. She was in Full House in 1994 in one of the last episodes as herself. And that was to promote Step by Step. She was in Love on the Rocks, Season 7, Episode 19 of Full House. She was in Serial Mom as herself in 94. She was in a TV movie, Seduced by Evil, playing Lee Lindsay, Leigh, Lee Lindsay. And then she was in ABC Sneak Peek with Step by Step in 94, playing Carol. 4 episodes between 91 and 95 of ABC TGIF as Carol. And then she, Carol Foster, and then she did The Naked Truth as herself in 95 in 1 episode. She did The Simpsons. I'm off key. As herself, doing voice work, obviously, in one 1996 episode. Now, she was seen as the Thigh Master lady on TV in the Nutty Professor movie. I loved that movie starring Eddie Murphy. I like it better than the original with Jerry Lewis. I know that's sacrilege to a lot of you out there, especially the older folks, the boomers. Sorry, man. I thought that movie was great, even though it had Jada Pinkett Smith in it, or Jada Pinkett it was in those days. So we'll cut her some slack. She hadn't gone crazy yet. She was that movie has a lot of heart. The Nutty Professor is so sad when he's losing his mind because of the formula and that tear. I'm a softie. That scene is so moving in The Nutty Professor. Eddie Murphy's just a genius. And then she played Sally McCormick in Devil's Food, also in 96. In 97, she did a TV movie, Love Struck, playing Venus, goddess of love, I guess. Never saw it. In No Laughing Matter, she played Emma in 1998. And then she did 160 episodes throughout all this period between 91 and 1998 on ABC TGIF. Step by Step as Carol Foster Lambert, opposite Patrick Duffy. That was one of those shows where it was like big stars got a second chance at primetime and they were successful. Kind of like Hearts of Fire with John Ritter and Marky Post. You don't see that show anymore. I like that show on CBS. All right, and winding down this IMDb list of credits, she voiced Maylie the dog in Rusty a Dog's Tale in 1998. Here's the last 2 credits for Suzanne Somers in terms of acting. In 1999, she played 2 roles, Clara Hagen and Emily Shepard in The Darklings, and then her final credit, uncredited, so it's a credit but not a credit, as herself, as Gilbert's mom. It says Gilbert's mom and Suzanne Somers, uncredited in Say It Isn't So in 2001, when she came clean about having cancer the first time. And then she also, little known fact, Suzanne Somers was almost in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm kidding. I made that up. That's my nostalgic Podblast BS internet rumor of the week. That's totally fabricated. No basis in truth in that. But I think it's cool that ABC forgave and forgot with her over all the bad vibes from the negotiations in Three's Company. Now I'm going to finally play a clip, just a little bit. I'm going to play her very first time playing Match Game and the first words that Gene Rayburn said to Suzanne Somers in her first and only appearance on Match Game. Again, this was taped July 17th, 1977. And I'm going to look up what day of the week. It's usually a Saturday or a Sunday, so they didn't have to deal with as much traffic. Driving to, and this is, to be specific, I got to cut the air off. The air just cut on, which my mic might have picked up, my wonderful Shure microphone. This is for my wonderful game show people who pay attention to all the details as I do of game shows. Episode 1031 of Match Game, which was Match Game 77. And by the way, the 5th episode of that week has not aired since the original air date. I don't know why. Sometimes episodes were withheld. Now, here's a really crazy thing a story I told on YouTube Live. In 1974, Match Game 74, Brett Somers held up a card. Her answer to a question was, I'm not going to say the word, I'll spell it, Faggots. And in 2019, the Game Show Network aired that, and usually they will withhold controversial episodes. I couldn't believe that slipped through the cracks. I still have it on my DVR. I was like, oh my gosh. And I took a screenshot of it, put it on my Instagram account, Chance Bartels, the Nostalgic Podblast, and the Bill Tush commented, is this for real? I think he said, is this real? He thought it might have been a Photoshop thing. No, that was literally what she wrote down. I can't remember the question, but I was like, oh my God. And she wasn't a hateful person. She's friends with Charles Nelson Riley, who was a gay guy. So she wasn't hateful. That was, And what did she say? She goes, what do they call these things? Wooden crickets? And I can't say the word. Faggots on Match Game. On the card. All right, so here is the first appearance of Suzanne Somers on Match Game 77. Let's listen to a little bit of it.
Get ready to match the stars. Nipsey Russell, Brett Summers, Charles Nelson Riley. From Three's Company, Suzanne Somers, Richard Dawson, and Patty Doyle. As we play the star-studded Big Money Match Game 77. And now here's the star of Match Game 77, Gene Rayburn.
Applause, applause, applause.
Got a new kid on the block, eh?
Ah, then do your duty, fireman.
Who?
No, just kidding.
Your cousin to
Yeah,
whom?
but it's the same spelling as Brett's.
Yes.
Somers, S-O-M-E-R-S.
Oh, it is,
She's
really?
an elderly character woman, as you can see.
We must give her a proper
What are you
welcome.
preparing for? Yes, indeed.
Now, if you will just do a little polite applause while I welcome her properly. Welcome, Suzanne.
Now, have you had any of the diseases on this list? You've got this one right now.
You have trench mouth.
Oh.
Just joking.
We
just
have
joking.
trench hand here.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome one and all. Now let's say hello to the two players, Linda Tibbetts and Juanita Whitley.
Now, I'm going to pause here and interject. I thought that was funny. I wonder if Richard Dawson ever got mono, kissing all those women on Family Feud. It started on Match Game. Gene Rayburn started that, and Richard Dawson watched him. He's like, if I ever get my own show, I'm going to kiss everybody. I got some comments. Sherry's still watching. Thank you. She says, you're not monotonous. Three's Company is my all-time favorite sitcom, so this stuff isn't boring to me at all. I remember the Heathers together on Battle of the Network Stars, Heather Thomas and Heather Locklear, and I like the Ropers better, too. I love Don Knotts, but you can't top Barney Fife. You got that right, sister. And then she says, I agree. Jack should have married Janet. Yep. Joyce DeWitt has admitted that she and John Ritter had a romantic relationship offset. Well, I'll be damned. And Janet, let's talk about that. I want to mention, I like how she had a different look in each and every season. She changed her hairstyle. She looked to me completely different in season 2 with the curly hair. No. Season 2, she had the Dorothy Hamill hair. Wait, no. In the very beginning, she looked like Dorothy Hamill. That's it, with the short dark hairstyle. And then she had like a perm. And then she had longer hair. Anyway, she looked different each year. Completely different, I think, from season to season. Then towards season 7 and 8, she sort of balanced out as the same. She had a little bit longer, shorter length hair. But I thought her best look was in season 3. Yeah, like that, with the short wavy hair. And then, and then in season 4 and 5, she had that spiky, kind of like a Pat Benatar do. Yeah. Are you just not going to go to bed tonight? Sherry's asking. I will get sleep. I do sleep. It's not like I no longer require the need for sleep, like in The Outer Limits I've talked about. That was a funny line that David McCallum, who also passed away. All these greats are dying. It sucks. In The Outer Limits, he says, I no longer require the need for sleep. No, I do. I should stop drinking the caffeine, though. But I will sleep vampire style. I'll go to bed. Probably when the damn sun comes up. I work from home. I have my own schedule. I do my own thing. It's all good, man. Sherry also says, John Ritter was my first real childhood crush. which is why I'm obsessed with Three's Company. I didn't know that about you. That's cool. Not to sound melodramatic, but his death was devastating to me. Amen. Even though I didn't know him, it felt like a part of my childhood died with him. And he was so young. I agree, Sherry. That was the horrible thing about it. Sherry also says, and she was right about the fluoride. She was a smart lady, Suzanne Somers was. I haven't drank tap water either since the 90s. And if I'm ever diagnosed with cancer, I won't get chemo or radiation. I'll try homeopathic remedies. And if that doesn't work, I'll just accept that it's my time to go. Wow. Oh, I didn't know you work from home. Yep, I do. So now let's get back. I love your comment, Sherry. Thank you. To the match game clip. I just want to play her first question. All right, Gene Rayburn's introducing these contestants. And if you want to see this clip, the rest of it, because I'm not going to play the whole thing, I'm also going to play just the opening to Match Game PM, where you can hear what I was talking about, where Richard Dawson gets a credit for Family Feud or a mention of Family Feud because it's syndicated, but CBS says, you don't let them promote that Family Feud. They're beating us in the ratings. And on YouTube, this YouTube channel is MG Productions, MG for Match Game, MG Productions. And there's another one too, like the Game Show Lovers channel. Great stuff. And I'm glad that Fremantle Media, who owns Match Game, they don't have a problem with fans of game shows uploading this to YouTube. I think that's cool. That's cool that they let them do that. The only thing that does get yanked are the Bob Barker Price is Rights, because I don't blame this, because there's an exclusive Pluto TV streaming channel, The Price is Right, the Bob Barker era, and they paid a lot of money, and they are airing certain episodes for the first time since the 80s, you know. Pretty cool stuff. All right, so let's continue with this match game with Suzanne Somers right now.
You ready?
I certainly am.
Linda is the current champ. She has $6,200 to her credit. She's won 2 games, and she's very happy about that. She's going to buy her husband a car, right?
No, I'm going to take him fishing.
Oh, you're going to take him fishing?
Yeah.
It's a little cheaper than buying him a car. And Juanita, you did pretty well with your first round question, matching 2 celebrities. We'll carry on with yours in a moment or so, right after we do this for you. Now I'm ready, and here we go. Whoops, there we go. Now this is the other first round question, belongs to Linda Tibbetts, and it reads as follows. Weird Wanda is a real nature lover.
Yeah?
Yesterday, she spent the entire afternoon kissing a blank. She's a nature lover, you see. Weird Wanda spent the entire afternoon kissing a blank. She's a nature lover.
Well, it means yes, we understand that.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Kissing
a blank.
Spent the
There's
entire
so
afternoon
many
kissing a blank.
choices, aren't there?
Yes.
This is a first round question, isn't it?
A first round question, and means you... That's very good. Now, that's what I would have said had I been playing the game.
Really?
Yes, indeed.
I knew that.
Pick it up. Then you pick it up.
all right.
Slide
I'm
it
a new
in.
girl on the block.
You're the new girl, and there you go. Now we're all set.
Kind of messy, though.
Charles isn't ready as usual. When are you going to
He
speak
will
to
be
him?
ready in a moment. And here we go with Linda. Weird Wanda is a real nature lover, Linda. Yesterday, she spent the entire afternoon kissing a blank.
Tree.
Tree. Tree is good. Nipsey, she said kissing a tree.
Well, I wasn't thinking like that. You see, I go by nature and the raw is seldom mild. I said kissing a bear.
Oh. That would be difficult, wouldn't it?
It will indeed.
Yes.
Because
What-
Smokey smokes.
What do you say?
What's this from? Take a month in the country, Miss Moon, or you'll find yourself under a tree or a bush.
That Humphrey Bogart said that.
Wrong.
Now, wait a minute. Who said that?
From Clifford Odets. Golden Boy. Forelli says it to Lorna Moon. Bush!
What did I get caught into here? You're getting
You thought
weirder.
I had that,
You're
didn't
getting
you?
weirder and weirder as time goes on.
Every reference to a play is 50 years old. Every star is 75 years old. She doesn't even know the waltz is Yesterday we heard Edna May Oliver.
Yes.
I chose flowers.
Oh, you did? Thank you, sir. We're looking for a tree here. Now, Suzanne, here's your first time at bat. Weird Wanda's a real nature lover. Yesterday, she spent the entire afternoon kissing and she said tree.
I'm going to get along just fine.
Very good.
Thank you.
See, the new kid on the block, all the veterans up there who've done it 1,000 times, they didn't know what the answer was, but the new kid did. Right. And you, sir.
No, she is weird.
She is very weird. Spent the entire afternoon kissing a...
Fruit.
A fruit.
That's weird.
California's okay if you're a grapefruit. Hello there.
Hello. Not to mention a nut.
A nut. Fruits and nuts, eh? Trees and earth. So there we are at the end of round one. Scores 2-1 in favor of the challenger. We go to round two now and ask the challenger to make a selection of
I've
A
got
or
to
B.
stop it here because it gets pretty boring. That's a long clip, but I want to play just the introduction by Johnny Olson to Match Game PM. Here we go. Oh, dear. Oh, and the next episode with Suzanne, it's headlined Match Game 77, episode 1032, The Richard Dawson Meltdown. Wonder what that's all about. I've seen these, but it's been years with Suzanne. Except for that one episode that hasn't aired, the fifth one, the Friday episode of Match Game 77. And those aired, by the way, in August of 77. I told you that, and it was a Sunday. They were taped on a Sunday on July 17th, 1977. And this is so cool, this website. It tells me when they aired. They aired between August 15th and 19th, 1977, about a month after they were taped all in one day on CBS. And then the Match Game PM was syndicated that week. So let me play. I'm going to play you a clip of Pee Wee Herman interviewing Suzanne Somers in a minute. I didn't mention that yet. It's a hell of a lot of fun. Okay, here's the Match Game PM, taped that same day.
Many of them as you possibly...
All right, here we go. Let me start over.
Get ready to match the stars. Nipsey Russell, Brett Summers, Charles Nelson Riley. From Three's Company, Suzanne Somers. From Family Feud, Richard Dawson. And Patty Doyle. As we play the star-studded Big Money Match Game PM.
All right, that's all I wanted to play. Now let's listen to a little bit of a cover of the Three's Company theme. I like this version a lot. It's by Dominique Hauser. Let's listen. That's the end of it. What am I doing? I'm like zoning out over here. Okay. What the hell is this? Okay, there it is. Got it. I'm sorry, I'm doing something behind the scenes. All right, cool. Final thing I'll just say about those match games with her. They're a lot of fun. I'm not trying to go on and on. You're like, what the hell are you talking about match game for so much? I think I might not have mentioned this. I did on YouTube Live. I don't know if I did on the audio version and Facebook Live that you're listening and watching now, listening to or watching. And also I mentioned if all of a sudden if you're for the Facebookers, if someone's watching this on Facebook Live after it's live, because most people are asleep right now as we're live, and the sound goes out, it's not you. It's Facebook bots. They have muted a clip or some audio. I bet that Three's Company got muted, but it will be intact on YouTube. This show, not the live one. I did a live one. I'm going to upload this one to YouTube after I'm live here on Facebook. And the audio platforms will have all the audio intact. So if ever it gets silent for more than, say, 10 seconds, something got muted by a bot. And you might want to just head on over to the YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast, and check it out on demand if you want to. I'm trying to get better about putting cue marks for different subjects that I talk about, so you can just get right to the thing that interests you, and you don't have to hear the whole show, because sometimes I go a little long. You think 4 hours, 6 hours. I think my record is sitting here with you fine folks for over 7.5, close to 8 hours. I did for a holiday Christmas show. Yeah. I need help, folks. I'm just kidding. I have fun. If I weren't passionate, I wouldn't be doing this, believe me. So let me get to... Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going to play an interview now as I take a break. I got to check on my bunny rabbit, my pet, in her area. I got to go down and check her out. Make sure she has plenty of food and water. Let's see here. Let's start with the great Pee Wee Herman, who also passed away, Paul Reubens. I really liked him a lot. This is about, let me tell you how long this clip is. It's a 7-minute clip, but it's worth it. Let's listen. The audio might be a little low, so just, if it is, wait for Paul Reubens to speak. Just turn up your volume.
My first guest slinked her way to stardom as the ditzy Chrissy on Three's Company. Duh. Now she's returning to television in a new television series called She's the Sheriff. I wonder what it's about. She also has a variety special which will be seen at the end of this very month. Please give me a very warm round of welcoming applause to Miss Suzanne Somers. Try it. Yeah. Power.
Yeah,
Power.
great.
All right, Suzanne.
I'm gonna buy me one of
Maybe you
those.
need this thing to come out there on your feet there. There we are. Just kidding. Okay, get your minds out of the gutter. You're even more beautiful in person. I can't believe it.
Thank you, so are you.
Thank you.
We look like we should be on a date together.
Yeah, well, maybe we should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where would you take me? Hi there. Where,
Take him out.
where would you take me on a date?
Well, start out maybe for ice cream at Howard Johnson.
What kind of what kind of ice cream?
Well, they have so many different flavors. Listen, this is my interview show tonight. Okay, now. What is your favorite color? I didn't push this thing.
It's gonna be a long night.
Is it?
Ooh, baby.
My favorite color is white. I like white or I like black.
White or black?
Yep.
Those aren't colors. And let's see. What is your birth sign?
I'm a Libra.
A Libra.
Yeah. Yeah?
Yeah, Libra. I don't actually know too much about that, so let's skip right on to it. If you had to describe yourself as an animal, Suzanne, would you A, be a bear, B, a snake, C, an elephant, or D, a squirrel?
I would be an elephant.
Elephant.
Yeah, I knew one.
Interesting.
friend who was an elephant.
Yeah?
I really did. Her name was Tanya. I worked with her at the Hilton in Las Vegas. And I don't sound strange, but they're really almost human. And I got very attached to her and she to me.
Wow.
And if you touch them, like right under here, you know, they purr and flap their what are these ears? Ears, yeah, and they bark.
Well, that's all I had to ask you.
Okay.
No, now, I was just kidding. I was just asking you a bunch of dumb questions right at the start. You
Yeah,
know?
I know.
So, okay, so now that we're all warmed up and everything, you have a new TV show. Yeah, and it's about you becoming a sheriff,
That's right.
I got that title. Now, see, it's called She's the Sheriff, right?
Right.
And you were married to a sheriff, is that
I was married to a sheriff and he died. And so now I'm the sheriff because there was no more sheriffs in Lake Tahoe.
Oh. And today is your very first day working on it.
Today was the first day we shot. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah.
So it's a whole different thing now because you're the definite star as opposed to there were three people who you were still definitely the star, but
there's nobody to fight with.
Yeah.
I get to have a gun and handcuffs and whips.
She's definitely the sheriff.
You're into bondage?
I don't know. I haven't really tried it or anything, but
Me neither.
maybe after the show.
Yeah.
On the way to Howard Johnson.
Right. Bondage and ice cream.
This is a talk show for me and she to talk, not you guys out there. So, and you also, in addition to that, you have a variety show that's going to be coming out before.
Right. That comes
She's the
out this
Sheriff.
month.
This month.
Yeah.
And so it's got a kind of a variety feel to it, right?
Yeah, well, I sing and I dance.
Sing,
and I do
dance?
characters.
Really?
Yeah, because, I was Chrissy on Three's Company, and everybody thought that's all I did. So I did the show where I play Alice Cramden on The Honeymooners, and I play Nancy Reagan. Ronnie and I are in bed watching Jane Wyman on Falcon Crest.
So did you bring a clip of that?
Yeah,
Is that what we're going to see, the variety show?
Yeah, I'd like to show
Do
you
you
a
want to
little bit.
set it up?
Well, I think this one is Nancy Reagan. I look really different. You've never seen me look like this before, but anyway. Roll 'em.
Hello, Mrs. Gorbachev? Hi, it's Nancy. Did you see Falcon Crest tonight? Do you believe Jane's hair? My hip Gaddafi's.
Who else do you play on the show?
I play Alice Cramden, and I play Dolly Parton, and there are a lot of characters. I'm doing Patti LaBelle.
Patti LaBelle?
Yeah, I look just like her. Well, when we do makeup,
Yeah.
And Madonna and Cyndi Lauper. There are all sorts of characters that I do, so it's just really fun. I get this new opportunity.
And so hopefully, if a lot of people watch the variety special, then you may get your own variety special and have 2 series and, be better than anyone else on television, right?
Would you come on my series?
Well, I don't know if you beg me. I would love to. I'd love to, maybe play Muhammad Ali or something, to your, Patti LaBelle.
That's right.
Well, we have to go to a commercial now. They're holding up like these commercial signs right out here. No, we're not going to a commercial. No commercials for the rest of the show.
Great interview. So now let's go into another interview with Tom Snyder I talked about. And then we'll get to the nostalgic treat of the week. I'm just still in shock about Suzanne Somers. She was just such a force for good. And she just had that great personality, awesome laugh. Let's listen to an interview from June 22nd, 1998. And I love when she interacts with callers, people that call in to the Late Late Show, starring the late great Tom Snyder and the late great Suzanne Somers. And this was actually David Letterman's production company Worldwide Pants that produced this show. Let's listen. And I'll come back in between because overall, I'm going to play 23 minutes off and on of this interview. The whole thing, though, with Suzanne and the great Tom Snyder. But I'll stop and interject because it's terrible to have a clip that long. It's just not good. Good radio, good audio, good podcasting, or anything.
Good evening, my friends, and welcome back, everybody. Happy Monday. It is the 22nd of June, 1998, and in the house tonight is Evelyn Keyes, one of the great stars of Gone with the Wind, which is now set for a dramatic re-release later on this week, and then Peter Funt, who is the co-host, along with our friend Suzanne Somers, of Candid Camera here on CBS.
Now, this is interesting because he mentions an Atlanta station. I'm in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I know you might be in Utah, you might be in California, you might be in another country, you might be in Canada, but I'm in Atlanta, so this is just a brief moment, and then it gets right to Suzanne Somers. Trust me, here we go.
And that would be my stint hosting what is known as the morning matinee. Remember that? I worked at a TV station in Atlanta, Georgia, and if you were the new guy there, you got to host the morning matinee. It was a terrible assignment because you had to get there at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning and prepare for about 14 live commercials that would occur during the morning matinee, which usually was a motion picture made in 1937, if you catch my drift. This was not the $1 million movie, this was the $12 movie. And we had one particular sponsor there. It was Kay Jewelers, and they sold everything but jewelry. And one of their main products was something, what do they call these unbreakable dishes? Melamine dinnerware. Remember that back in the 60s, they had these dishes that were made out of some kind of plastic that if you dropped them, they didn't break. So the pitch, and this is a 2-minute live pitch in the middle of the movie, Wonton, the dog that ate Hollywood. I would have a tray of these dishes, and I would drop them on the cement floor of the studio, and the opening line was, "Look, ladies, they don't break." And of course, the camera would follow the dishes down to the floor, and they broke into a million pieces, and my stage manager started laughing, and I started laughing, and I couldn't finish the spot. So the program manager, a fellow named Neil Van Els, comes roaring down the hall. He says, if you break up one more time and make a fool of yourself on television, that's the end of your career on the morning matinee. I couldn't wait to break up again because I hated the assignment. So a week later, it's the same company, Kay Jewelers, and they've got a product that's called the Attach-O-Matic. Remember that? And the opening line was, "Are you tired of hanging up pictures the old-fashioned way?" I mean, I've never had a problem with it myself. It's like, they have this product out called Hamburger Helper. I think Ground Round by itself is just fine. It doesn't need any help, and I'm not knocking the product. So the pitch is here. They have this little gun that you shoot a piece of glue onto the wall, and you hang a picture on it, and that's the new way to hang pictures as opposed to the old-fashioned way. And they had a model there, and I said, "Watch, let's hang a picture the new modern way," or some line like that. And you fire this little thing at the wall, and she takes the picture, and she hangs it up there, and 5 seconds later, it falls down, breaks all over the place, and of course, I start laughing. Van Els comes roaring down the hall. He says, "That's the last morning matinee you'll ever do." I said, "Mission accomplished. Let me out of here." The king of all late night. Yeah, 1.3. Perfect, yeah. Her newest book is called After the Fall, and I'm always happy to welcome my friend Sue.
Here she is. I want to acknowledge Sherry. Thank you for hanging in. She says she's got to go to sleep. And she says, "This has been a lot of fun, Chance. I hope you're able to get some rest. Good night." Yeah, good morning to you, Sherry. I will. Don't you worry about me. I'm rested up, caffeinated, and I will get some sleep and get back on my normal schedule, Dracula style. No, I'm kidding. But thanks for hanging in, and sleep well. And I hope that you feel better. You said you took a Benadryl that's kicking in, so I hope that does not mean that you're ill. Now here comes Suzanne Somers talking about After the Fall with the great Tom Snyder from June 22nd, 1998. Let's listen.
The show. She's in her jammies again tonight. You always wear your pajamas.
Well, you're the only show that you can get away with wearing your pajamas.
I guess so.
Because you don't have to walk out, and the shot is usually right here.
Yeah, exactly.
So, don't have to hold my stomach in.
I get the full effect, though. Yeah. This book is about what is now called the blended family. When a man and a woman marry, and he and she have children, and they all get together and try and make it work.
Yeah, very, very difficult. Have you been married to the same person all your life?
No, I've only been married to one person a long time ago.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Would you like to know more?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it's your own show, and I'll come on. You'll ask.
Okay.
Now, when you and Alan got married, I know your husband, Alan. Right. You had a son, Bruce, and I believe he had some children. How did that go?
Alan had a son the same age, or just about the same age as my son, and we had been, you know, I had been with Alan for 10 years before we started living together, but it was always late at night. I'd put Bruce to bed.
When the children are asleep, right.
I would creep out, and I don't know, you have to understand that there was a me back then and there's a me today, and they're two different women.
Okay.
And I never thought that this relationship with Alan would go anywhere, and I was so in love with them that it was my own self-esteem at the time. So I didn't really bring Bruce into our relationship until we decided this is serious. We're going to live together in the hopes that we will take the step to get married. So when we started living together, my son was virtually a stranger to Alan, and at the same time, he's no longer living with his son, who's the same age, and there's a lot of guilt. When I was writing this book,
so that your son and you and Alan are the unit, the family unit, and the other son is with his mother.
Yeah, and his daughter.
Right.
And so they would come over, and there was this tension because no kid wants a new parent.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Well, you know, it's the old thing as kids. They read us the nursery tale of the wicked stepmother.
Yes, and that was the other thing I found in writing this book, that's the first big mistake, is saying, hello, I'm your new stepmother. All they hear is mother, and in their minds they're saying, I have a mother, I don't want a new mother, and if I even wanted a new mother, it's not going to be you.
Right, you're not the one I picked.
You're not the mother I want. You're a mother, all right. But not my mother. And it was so difficult, and I was so in love with Alan, and he was so in love with me, and we almost split up 3 different times because of the difficulties.
And how did Alan feel about Bruce? Like, was this an intruder in his life?
Alan, that was not on his best behavior in those years. Alan, to rectify his guilt, made my son invisible. In making my son invisible, I became protective of my son, and so I would take
don't get between a mom and her cub.
No, the lioness in you comes out, and so I would take my son's side, of course. I mean, he's a child.
You know, they say the bond between man and woman is strong. Mother and son is the strongest in the world.
It's pretty strong.
No, to this day, my mother and I, and you and your son Bruce, don't get in the way of that.
Yeah. Well, that's what was happening. And so Alan became the enemy. And it was so confusing because I love him, I sleep with him every night, but at the same time, I am angry. And hate is, it's not hate, but there's a rage in me. And the arguments that we were having were so out of control. The slightest thing would spark it because we were walking on eggs around one another all the time. So, you know, I started out to write this book. I thought, I called it After the Fall because I wanted to kind of 20 years later look back at, isn't it funny, isn't it ironic that Chrissy Snow was the first feminist, that Chrissy was, I got fired for asking for a raise because I said, I'd like you to pay me what you're paying the men who are of comparable success in television.
Yeah.
And as I was writing that story, which is in this book, this other story emerged because I would take myself from the Three's Company rehearsal hall. We were bouncing around like the kids on the set, and they even called us the kids and bring the kids down and, hey, kids, and you're doing really well, kids, and we're all adult people, but we're at the beginning that we're kids, to feel that we're kids. And then I would go home in writing the book. I would take myself home and go, ooh, wow, we were not happy. And yet I have this incredible relationship.
How did this all become resolved?
Well, that's the thing. See, people think that they're going to go into a blended family and right away it's going to, you know, resolve itself.
No.
It took us 20 years. What I have today with my stepchildren is so rich. And I believe particularly with my stepdaughter, that I've earned the right to be her stepmother now. I believe with my stepson that he's more comfortable because of loyalty to his own mother, that he's more comfortable with me being his father's wife. In fact, that's how I came to this. His mother-in-law, who lives in France, she's French, and I said, what's the French word for stepmother? And she said, well, there is none. And I said, well, then what am I? And she said, well, you are nothing.
That's the French word.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And at first I was kind of insulted, and then I walked around and I thought, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm not his, I did not give birth, and unless he invites me, unless he doesn't have a mother or needs another one, it is not my right to call myself mother.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I have with both of them was so worth the work. It's about patience and doing the work.
And how thrilled was Alan that you wrote all this in a book?
You know, I kept saying to him, I'd be writing the story, and I said, Al, you know it's going to resolve itself in the end. Yeah, the good guy's going to emerge, but you're not coming off so well here. He said, I don't care, just tell the truth. And so he says now that he's a 300-page jerk. But if you hang in there, the last 50 pages, you'll really like him.
He's an okay guy, huh?
And I read a review today of this girl somewhere in the country, and she said, well, for some reason, Somers was crazy about Hamill, but I don't think the readers will be. So it's pretty trusting. It's pretty secure of him to allow me to lay it out there. Sometimes life is not pretty.
One thing you've never done is not lay it out there.
I lay it out there.
You've always laid it right out there, and you've taken on all comers. This woman has taken on all comers, folks. All comers.
But always with a reason.
Oh.
The first book, the alcoholic book of living with an alcoholic, that was
the nostalgic
you
Podblast.
don't have to stay where
We're remembering Suzanne Somers.
You can make it out if you're willing to do the work on yourself. Then I found myself in the second situation, which is this blended family, which has elements of alcoholism in it, because the behavior is very dysfunctional of everybody, and the fighting that we did. And there's no reason to write a book to say, it was terrible, it got worse, and today, wow, is it awful?
Yeah.
The point of the book is, hey, once again, you do the work,
There's
and
a way
you're patient. You can find bliss in a blended family.
Let me do a little break here, and then we'll get to the good part, okay? I want to hear about Tanya, the elephant on the stage, and where she is now and all that stuff. Suzanne Somers is the guest. She's on CBS's Candid Camera. Her newest book is called After the Fall. It's not a disaster picture. It's not a disaster book. We'll be right back with Susan, you on the toll-free after this break. Jeez.
This is the best when they get calls. Let's listen. And we're halfway through. But I think this is, hopefully you're entertained. I think this is a great interview. I love her bubbly personality. Oh, man, what a light that has been extinguished, unfortunately, because of friggin' cancer. Why hasn't the research produced any results? Can you tell me of any results that have been produced? Any advancements in the medicine and the science? She should still be alive. 76, almost 77, that's too young to be gone. She should have made it to like 99, like Betty White. Unbelievable.
Here's Carrie on the toll-free in Austin, Texas. Hi, Carrie, and welcome to CBS Late Night. Hello.
Yes, hello, Tom. We're going to miss you. We're going to miss you around these parts.
Thank you, sir. You may not see me, Carrie, but I'll be right around the corner. What's on your mind tonight, young man?
Well, I'm calling to ask how Ms. Somers feels about her, or what her son might think about his mother being considered a sex symbol, and also being in one of the best 100 American films of all time.
American Graffiti? Yes. Is that the one?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, it is.
You know, Bruce grew up with me doing this, and this is just what his mother does.
You're his mom. You know?
I'm his mom, and I think he likes everything about it. This has not been a detriment for him, except in the beginning, when you're a single mother and you raise a child, they get 100% of your attention. And then when my career took off, it got cut back drastically. And then when I moved in with Alan, it got cut back even more. And that's his issue there. But it was never about being a sex symbol, you know. Because I've heard him say this to people. She's mom.
Yeah, exactly.
She is mom.
Exactly.
Yeah, I make grasshopper pie for him, which is just the lowest. I don't know why. It's a sense memory thing from when he was a kid. It's just sugar, marshmallows, and just wreck.
Yeah. Hey, Carrie, what did you think of the top 100 movies? Did you agree with their selections, or were there some missing in your view?
Let's see. Cool Hand Luke. I don't believe I see it on the list.
No, I don't think so. The one I thought should have been there was Rebecca, the Hitchcock picture with Joan Fontaine back in the late 1930s. I thought it was a great movie. It wasn't there.
Did you notice who the #1 actor was, or who was in the most films?
No, I didn't.
Ward Bond.
Oh, right. From Wagon Train. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Wagon Train.
Wagon Train. What did I say?
Wagon Train.
Wagon Train.
Hey, Wagon! Yeehaw!
Carrie, I'm glad you called. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Okay, well, thank you, Tom, for all the years.
All right, thanks, Carrie. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Now, tell me here about, you have this great Las Vegas show, and what is Tanya the Elephant? Was there an elephant in your act?
One of the best friends I've ever had is this elephant.
Get outta here.
I'm not kidding. I never knew you could connect with an animal like that. And I wrote...
With an elephant?
They're
They're supposed to be dumb as a post.
This elephant was so smarter than most human beings that I know. I rode her every night, twice a night, for 3 years. She and I did the finale together, and also an opening together, and it was so interesting. I had Elvis's old dressing room at the Las Vegas Hilton for 3 years, and we shared a common wall, Tanya and I. She was on the other side, and the stage was above us. So Tanya would listen for the music cues, and she always knew 10 minutes before we're supposed to go up. So she would come out of her dressing room over to my dressing room.
For a cup of coffee.
And, essentially, and she'd sort of stand in place, dance in place, and I would be finishing up the makeup and putting on my lipstick, and I go, okay, I'll be right with you, I'll be right with you. And, excuse me, and then we would ride up the elevator together, which seemed very normal to me and my elephant.
What did Tanya weigh?
A few tons. I mean, she was an elephant.
Yeah, but some elevator, huh?
And it was made just for her.
I would hope so. Yeah.
But sometimes it'd be loaded with dancers. But during this part of the show, it would be just the two of us, and we had matching headdresses. I wore a red jeweled dress and a big jeweled headdress and she wore the same headdress. And her, it wasn't a saddle, but her beautiful blanket that I sat on would match the outfit. It was we were quite beautiful together. And
then when you would get on stage...
Well, we get out of the elevator, and I'd go talk to some of the kids because it wasn't quite time to go on and do the finale. Tanya would go over to the curtain, and she would listen, and as it would get close, she'd come over to me, and again, she'd dance in place, and then she'd roll down on one knee, like, get up, get up, get up. And if I didn't get right on, she'd stand up and dance in place again, and okay, I'm getting on. And then we'd go over to the curtain, and I was supposed to give her a little tap, but I didn't need to because she knew the cue. And we'd go out, and she'd make a big circle, me on her back, and she would then rear up on her hind legs and smile for the audience. I don't know how, she was so smart. Do elephants smile? I don't know.
I have no idea.
But she smiled. She would smile, and they would
I'm just sitting here enchanted by the wonder of it all.
And then she would gently come out and roll herself down and roll one leg under so that I could slide off and take my bow.
Thunderous applause.
To thunderous applause.
Did Tanya ever have any accidents on the stage?
Actually, one night she did. She was just mortified because...
Well, I could imagine, yeah.
Well, I would hear in the dressing room next to me, I'd hear that same. She danced in place a lot. And one night I went over and I said to Yenda, her trainer, I said, what are you doing? He said, well, before I take her up there with you, he said, I make her dance in place, and then she, drops a load on the floor. And I guess there was more than he expected. And
Isn't that always the way?
And when an elephant drops.
Oh, yeah, I hear.
It's true what they say.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Stand back.
Yeah, right. And I used to drag a fur around with me. It was like,
And who was the guy that trained the elephant?
Yenda Smaha. Yeah.
And then would he sweep up after?
Well, that night we just had to leave her where it was. Now, at the end of the show, then we'd take our bow, and the curtain would close. And then Tanya and I would get back in the elevator. We'd go down to our dressing rooms and get dressed. And then she wouldn't, but her trainer would take her headdress off, and I would take mine off and
by
take
this
off
time,
my
he
makeup.
cleaned up the...
He had cleaned up the load, that load. And she then would come over to my dressing room because she knew at the end of the evening that I would let her have whatever was left on the fruit tray.
Oh,
and so
the buffet,
she could wiggle through the door. She had no idea that she was a big elephant. She'd wiggle through the door and then come up to the tray and swoop it up. One night, I don't know if you know, there's a comedy writer, Chris Beard.
Oh, yes, of course.
Chris was visiting us in the dressing room. He's sitting there. And we'd gone out to dinner. It was the second show. The second show's not open till 3 o'clock. And Chris is asleep. He's lying on the couch like this, and I'm going through what I go through every night. And Tanya squeezes through the door at the end of the show. Chris is asleep on the sofa. She comes over to get the fruit, and she's excited. So she gallops over there, and Chris Beard opens his eyes, and there's this elephant coming at him. But anyway, I got sidetracked. So we would leave after that, after she finished the fruit. We'd go upstairs in the elevator out to the parking lot, and before she went home, her trainer would let her have one big happy romp in the playground where she'd romp and trumpet and make these wonderful sounds. And then
What was the man's name again?
Yendes Maha.
Yendes Maha. I wonder if they ever asked him. He minded cleaning up after the dump.
You're just kind of transfixed on the dump, aren't you?
And then he would say, oh, I've never thought about quitting. What, leave show business? I've been dying to get there for 10 minutes.
I should know you well enough by now to know. Back to the dump. Back to the dump.
Right.
You know, and I didn't pick up the cue. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You know, we're both getting older now.
But you see, last night I had an email today. They accused me of interrupting David Steinberg last night. So this evening I'm being on my very best behavior.
You are.
Yes, I am.
You actually are.
Last night,
I love David.
So do I.
Yeah, funny guy.
I wasn't too thrilled last night when he offered me the part of the president in his new album on Bill Clinton.
Well, let's talk about that,
King of all late night does not play the president's.
Why do you think he wanted you to be the president's dick?
No idea. In any event, I have to take a little break here.
Gosh, and that will leave us all with a little food for thought.
Yeah, well, in a manner of speaking, yes. Yendes Maha. Is that the guy's name? Is he still around?
Well, I have more to tell you about this.
Oh, thank God. We'll be right back.
If you didn't have a break, I'd tell you right now.
Yeah, right. Where is she now?
Well, that's the thing. I just have to back up one little bit. So after I left the Moulin Rouge, after 3 years, I was playing the DI about 6 months later.
Desert Inn.
Desert Inn. And I said to Alan after the show one night, why don't we go over and see Tanya? Do you think she'd remember me? So we went down and downstairs into the dressing room area, and I walked towards her door, and I started getting nervous because I know this person really well. And I looked in the door and I said, Tanya? And she looked at me and she started flapping her ears.
Really?
And she makes a purring sound like cats do, and she started purring. I went over, I started rubbing her hair like I used to, and she was nuzzling into my head, and it was...
You loved her, didn't you?
I loved her.
Yeah,
I truly loved her, and she loved me.
Yeah, you know what I want to talk about with you?
She's been sold to a circus. That's right.
Nuts.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So anyway. What?
You're over 40, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But women today who are 40 and 50 are far different from women who were 50 in the 1950s when I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, women who were 50, it was all over. You know, their sexuality was all over, and their vamping was all over, and their flirting was all over. And it's not that way with women, or guys either, for that matter.
It's not. It has to be diet, exercise, and also...
Outlook and attitude.
Outlook, attitude, but also we're in the workforce. And it's changed us a lot. And we are sexual beings. I find now, not to get into my sex life or anything, but I guess I'm going there.
No stopping you now, lady.
You're right. But I find that...
They're out there saying, you know, it's about time. We've been waiting.
Right, so think of my husband. It's about time. I've been waiting. Now, I find that now, I'm 51, I find that just everything is better. I mean, everything. And I think with the kids are up and out and gone, and we've got the house, and pretty much know what we do for a living, and all those stresses are gone. And there's some nights I kind of laugh with Alan and I go, our kids aren't doing this tonight. I heard Robert Redford on a CNBC interview, a compilation, and he said, I don't even find women interesting until they're 40. He said they're more beautiful and they've got it together. And
well, you don't have to help them with their homework if you don't want to.
Don't have to help them with their homework. And also, you're not afraid of your sexuality, whatever is there. And you know, you use the thigh master a little bit and you look really good.
The thing that kills me is, you know, they talk about demographics, about the target audience in TV is like 18 to 34, and those of us who are over 50, we don't count for nothing.
Right.
They based all these demographics on the way people were in the 1940s after the war.
Right,
you know, people who are 50 and 60 years old today are not the same as they were when they made all these rules up 50 years ago. We're different. You
Tell me about it. Plus, we're the ones spending money.
Yeah.
You know, they say, well, the advertisers figure by now that we're set in our ways and we're not going to try a new brand. I try new brands all the time. I'm not set in my ways. You show me something better, I'll buy it.
Me too.
They really need to change that. I mean, this network skews more to people our age.
That's right, and beyond. The mature audience.
The mature audience.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're living longer, and we're healthier, and we have money at this age,
and we know how to spend it.
And we know how to spend it. Right. And, you know.
Spend a few bucks on After the Fall, huh?
Only 23. 23. Out of all the $23 you waste in your life, and you could find out what happened to Alan on page 301, because that's when he starts getting nice. And we haven't even talked about how nice he is.
Well, he's a very nice man, I should say that, and you can find out more by simply checking out After the Fall. Thanks for coming on tonight, young lady.
I always love it.
I'll see you again before we go.
Okay.
Okay. Suzanne Somers, the book is called After the Fall. The TV show is called Candid Camera. Next, the great Robbie Robertson after this short timeout.
Wasn't that great? I think he is just a fantastic interviewer, or was, and I still can't believe that Suzanne Somers is deceased. It just doesn't seem real. Hey, Barry Grauman, hello. He says thank you for tuning in as we're live. Did you know that Three's Company only had 6 episodes when it debuted in the first season? It was basically like a trial run, kind of like Dallas. Dallas was supposed to be a mini-series. And was a miniseries, but the ratings were so good, it became a full-fledged season. It was given a full-fledged season. Now, from my TV Bible, I'm going to read a little bit about Three's Company, and then we're going to move on to another topic. Three's Company debuted March 15th, 1977. I already said that many times. The theme, Three's Company, was by Don Nickel and Joe Raposo, sung by Ray Charles and Julia Rinker. In this comedy, 2 contemporary young single girls found themselves in need of a roommate for their Santa Monica apartment, so they decided to settle for the man they found sleeping in their bathtub after a going-away party for their last roommate. Jack was harmless enough, but the problem was in convincing everyone else of that. Parents objected, and humorous misunderstandings abound, but Jack stayed. In addition to his other virtues, he was the only one of the 3 roommates who could cook. His favorite ploy was to intimate that he was a homosexual, and therefore uninterested in the 2 very sexy girls. In fact, nothing did go on between them. The landlady, Mrs. Roper, who lived downstairs, worried less about what was going on upstairs than about the fact that nothing was going on in her love life with her husband, Stanley. Away from their confused home life, Jack was studying for, and eventually got, his chef's diploma. Janet, the brunette, worked in a floral shop, and Chrissy, the frivolous blonde, was a typist and a secretary. After a short run in the spring of 1977, Three's Company was picked up as a regular series on ABC's fall 1977 schedule. The comedy was based almost entirely on sexual double entendres and religious leaders, and critics found the program almost as objectionable as Soap, which followed it on the Tuesday night schedule. Nevertheless, viewers made it one of the major hits of the 1977 and 1978 television season, especially after it was featured on the cover of Newsweek magazine in February 1978. The cover photo was a staged shot of Chrissy with her undergarment seemingly falling off, and Jack leering over her shoulder, something that never happened on the show. Norman Fell and Audra Lindley left the series in 1979 for their own show, The Ropers, and were replaced by Don Knotts as a new landlord. Then in 1980, Suzanne Somers, who had become a media celebrity as a result of the series, demanded a huge increase in salary, plus a piece of the profits in recognition of her new importance. The producers adamantly refused, and her role was reduced to an occasional brief scene in which she was seen phoning her roommates long distance. She was supposed to be in Fresno caring for her sick mother, not father, her mother. I said father earlier. Eventually, Somers was written out of the show altogether, and her career went into decline. Jack and Janet prominently found a new roommate in Cindy, who was introduced as Chrissy's cute but clumsy cousin, played by Jenny Lee Harrison, who was a Los Angeles Rams cheerleader. She did Dallas after Three's Company. Anyway, she moved out in 1981 in order to study veterinary medicine at UCLA, though she continued to visit for another season. Her replacement was a smart, vivacious nurse named Terry. Meanwhile, Jack pursued his career as a chef, first at Angelino's restaurant, whose owner, Frank Angelino, played by Jordan Charney, was seen occasionally. In 1982, Mr. Angelino and landlord Ralph Furley put up the money to open Jack's own place called Jack's Bistro, specializing in French cuisine. When not at the restaurant or the apartment, the gang hung out at the Regal Beagle, a neighborhood pub. When he lost his roommates, Janet got married and Terry moved to Hawaii. Jack moved in with his new girlfriend, and a new series began in the fall of 1984, Three's a Crowd. Three's Company is based on the British series Man About the House. ABC aired reruns on weekday mornings from June to September 1981. I remember that when I was 10, I'd make a big bowl of cereal, Fruity Pebbles cereal, and watch Three's Company and Little House on the Prairie, and then go out and play after, before lunch. Anyway, yeah, so I think we've covered Three's Company pretty extensively. And, I was going to say something else about Three's Company, though. What was it? Oh, I can't remember now. Something that was in that article. Let me see here. I am being harassed right now as we're live. Let's see here. I don't know if I played this version of the theme. I better not play it. I get so weird about and so weirded out about music. These bots are trying to get me. Yeah, I better not air that. I better not run the original. That was the season 1 version of the opening credits. So, in conclusion, about Suzanne Somers, she's immortal, just like I talked about last time about actor Mark Goddard being immortal on film, video, in books, and in appearances at fan events that people captured with their phones and on video. And Suzanne Somers, with her books and with her philanthropy and with her spirit, she will definitely be missed. And I'm just shocked and I'm angered, that something hasn't been done. There's been no real strides to make inroads at curing breast cancer. I'm sorry. And that's what killed Olivia Newton-John in 2023. It just makes me really ill. All of the billions and billions of dollars that good-hearted people have given to fight this thing. And I question what the money's being used for. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get on a soapbox here. This is a happy nostalgia show. But this one really hit hard. So God bless the soul of Suzanne Somers. And I grieve with fellow fans. It sucks. But let's talk about another topic and raise a glass. I'm going to raise a Pepsi at this point. I'm starting to get a little sleepy. I talked about this last time. I want to touch on it again. We're going to shift gears here and talk a little bit about Loki Season 2 on Disney+. And last week I reported to you how the show made a small error at the end of season 2, episode 1, where it showed a McDonald's set in 1982 with no ashtrays on the table. And I told you about someone named Jack who claims that was intentional. Nobody effed up. They don't want them there by design. And he was helpful. He actually shared an article, several articles, one being from Friday the 13th, 2015, where there was an announcement that Disney has banned smoking in all future films, including Star Wars and Marvel Comics. And that would extend to the streaming series. They hadn't begun the streaming shows yet. WandaVision began that in 2020. So Bob Iger issued a statement. I won't reiterate because I already covered it last time. Here's my thing. I think now, after what I saw in the second episode of season 2 of Loki, they had a prop master or someone in the set and or props department that wasn't paying attention to detail. I don't think an ashtray would violate that policy, especially if it was one that didn't have a cigarette butt or ashes in it. It could be a clean one, but just be historically accurate. That's what I love about Marvel. Marvel Comics have always had a touch of realism amongst the outlandish, the superheroes, the supervillains, the powers, the fantasy of it. But they had real towns. They had characters with real problems. It was New York City. It wasn't Metropolis. It wasn't Gotham City. You had Chicago. You had real presidents. You had real things going on amongst the outlandish stories. Stan Lee saw to that. And that's why the public, right from the beginning, in August of 1961 with Fantastic Four issue 1, that's why the number one consumers of the early Marvel comics were college students and Vietnam soldiers. And that is a fact. It wasn't little kids. This wasn't like a Saturday morning cartoon show. So my point is they have done a great job at Disney and with Marvel Studios at creating a whole universe that parallels the comic book universe. So Wolverine smoked cigars in the X-Men, but that's when 20th Century Fox had the rights. Now Disney has taken over the rights to X-Men, and I'm kind of used to seeing Logan smoking a stogie. You know what I mean? Is that gonna go away? I mean, come on now. Now, Iger did say historical figures like, say, Abraham Lincoln, for instance, who had a history of smoking, will be shown smoking in future projects. But, well, that's fine. You want to preserve history? That's history. I mean, I was around in 1982. I remember those doggone ashtrays. I shot a video in 1988. I still have in March of '88 at a McDonald's inside a mall, Perimeter Mall in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And there's doggone ashtrays on every table. That's just one little gripe. The rest of it's great. I love the acting. I love the writing in Loki season 2 and season 1 a couple years ago. The other issues, this is a really stupid mistake, and I don't think this was intentional. In the beginning of the second episode of season 2 of Loki, I know I talked about this last time, I'll be brief. There's a scene where Loki, and this isn't a spoiler, he's walking at night in 1977 past a theater, and on the wall of that theater, on the brick wall, on the outside of that theater is a movie poster for Herbie Rides Again. Problem is, that movie was released in 1974. In 1977, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo in June of 77 was released by Disney. So that's another point. There's no conflict where Disney doesn't own the rights to the poster. It's the same company that owns Marvel, that owns the Herbie movies, and all the Herbie movies, including the one with Lindsay Lohan, are streaming on Disney Plus right now. Only reason I noticed that, most people wouldn't notice. I was talking to Al Hardy today, and he's like, I don't know what's going to notice that. Well, you'd be surprised. Marvel fans pay a lot of attention to detail because in the past, Marvel Studios has hidden little Easter eggs. And so now someone brought up a point. This is a time travel show. Steve Russo brought this up and in comments, and he commented, hey, this is a time travel show, and that's a fair point. And he's right. This is about time travel. But the thing is, it's a 3-hour difference. I mean, a 3-year difference. So what is that going to prove? I mean, when they talk time travel, they talk alternate timelines and like major alternate universes, not a matter of 3 years. I think it was a mistake. Someone wasn't paying attention, which is weird because Disney has great oversight over their properties and their new stuff. Only reason I noticed that poster was because Julie Summers, that's one of the few movies she starred in 1977. Disney Goes to Monte Carlo, and she signed this recently. I know I've mentioned this many, many times. I've shown this comic book many, many times. She signed, but I was paying attention to that poster, so that's probably the only reason I noticed that it wasn't the accurate for the 1977 poster. So that's a big screw up. And the other screw up is They show more of the McDonald's. That's not the issue. The exterior of the McDonald's set is the smallest McDonald's I've ever seen, supposedly set in the state of Oklahoma in 1982, and there's no drive-through. I remember in 81, I was a soccer player, and I remember going through a drive-through specifically in 1981 after a soccer game with my buddy Jason Chandler, and his dad was driving their station wagon. And and that was at the Johnson's Ferry Park Air McDonald's, which still stands in remodeled form. So, and then the final point, the final screw up I noticed, continuity error big time. This character played by Owen Wilson in Loki in the second episode of season 2, he goes after a character I won't mention because it would be a spoiler back in time in 1982 at that McDonald's, and he finds this person. So one character is talking to the person outside the McDonald's in that badly looking McDonald's that looked too tiny. Then it cuts to the inside, and all of a sudden this character Mobius, who's from the future from something called the TVA, is eating a hot apple pie from McDonald's and French fries with a drink, whether it's a shake or a soda, it's irrelevant, doesn't matter, but just describing the scene. Well, how did he pay for that? There's been no scene that I can recall of any currency, like showing, okay, here's the money of the time. Like in Star Trek IV, in the movie The Voyage Home, Captain Kirk had to sell his spectacles at an antique shop to come up with $100 to divide amongst his crew so they have money to buy things. You know, that was a little touch of realism amongst the fantasy. How the hell did he have money? We're not shown. So I thought that was a little plot hole. Not a major thing. But yeah, it does detract from my enjoyment when I see what I perceive as history being rewritten, even in fiction, and it's very distracting. Seeing that false movie poster. Now, I may have egg on my face. There's going to be 6 episodes of Loki Season 2, which may have already dropped depending on when you might be listening to this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast or watching it on YouTube at the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube channel or on Facebook Live. So maybe it will be explained that was there intentionally to show that something's off. I doubt it because the 3-year difference is not that significant, but we'll see. I could very well be made a fool of again by pointing all this out. But the cigarette thing doesn't make sense. The lack of ashtrays, because that doesn't violate Disney's no tobacco policy. So enough said on that. I'm still enjoying it. Still enjoying it. Oh, yeah, I did want to mention that also, a little gripe. They did a great job with the sets, but I think that some of the costumes in that 1982 McDonald's look more like the 70s or even the 60s. The color scheme looked like the mid-1960s. Because I remember 1982 very well. I was like 11 years old. And thing about this, 1982 was only 8 years from 1990. You know what I mean? I know that was over 42 years ago, 1982. But it just doesn't look right. You could tell that someone who wasn't alive then put that set together and put those props together and just, I wish they'd paid more attention. The devil's in the details, folks. So let's see here. And then the wood was wrong too. I remember McDonald's back then had like almost a plexiglass table. You know, the tables and chairs, they had this fake, it wasn't wood. And it looks like in Loki episode 2, season 2, that those are wood tables. Anyway, minor gripe, but look, I pay attention to details. So let's move on from that. People are probably sick of hearing me talking about that. Last week we talked about some spooky movie recommendations. I recommended Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Nightmare in Badham County, a different kind of horror movie. And I mentioned Psycho 4, which is rare. Grizzly. I want to talk about Grizzly. That was shot in Clayton, Georgia, back in 1975. It was supposed to be like the next Jaws. It was nothing near as good as Jaws, but it was entertaining. And it was very gory. I recommend Grizzly. I've talked about it with Al Hardy before at his home studio here on the Nostalgic Podblast. Okay, I want to remind people really quickly about a special deal that Remind Magazine has going on. Normally, Remind Magazine is $4.95 plus tax per issue, but they have been running this special, which is going to go away. I would take advantage of this for holiday gifts and birthdays where you can get Remind Magazine for $1 an issue. Just go to remindmagazine.com and a kind order specialist will assist you in processing your order. And they accept all major credit cards securely. So Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover. Or you can call them toll free, 855-773-6463. And think about this. Your gift recipient, if you choose to give this as a gift for the holidays or for a birthday, will think you spent a hell of a lot more than just $12. And that's out the door. No tax, no shipping, all included. Introductory offer. You'll love it. And if you're listening or watching the Nostalgic Podblast, this program, the chances are you like nostalgia. Their wheelhouse at Remind Magazine are the 1950s to the 1990s with games, brain-teasing puzzles, trivia. You'll love it. And so will your gift recipient. And please, when you call 855-773-6463, again, 855-773-6463, please mention the Nostalgic Podblast when you order. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a great magazine. All right. I'm going to talk about our nostalgic treat of the week. Last time, though, before I get there, we always cover the TV cliche of the week. And I had some other things I thought of since the last show just a couple of days ago in terms of the catchphrase that got stale. And I'd mentioned, kiss my grits, Flo's line in Alice. That got old after a season or two. Really old. And I mentioned, Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, with a Pepsi in my hand, or what, what, that got old. And he said that, Red Fox, as the great Fred Sanford, said that in every episode of Sanford and Son. And I thought that got a little silly after a while. So I thought of a couple more. Even Ralph Cramden in the 50s, one of these days, pal, and bang, zoom, to the moon, Alice. That got a little old after a while. Definitely by the classic 39 episodes after he'd said that live and all those skits on the Jackie Gleason show. How about this one? Dynamite! Jimmy Walker as JJ. On Good Times. That got very stale. And I talked about, what you talking about, Wills? That got old. How about this one? Sit on It from Happy Days and Hey! That got old. Big. I could do a whole half Podblast on TV catchphrases of classic television shows that really got old really fast. Okay, so we'll just combine that because this is a bonus show since Suzanne Somers shocked the world by passing away. Unbelievable. Let's see, what else do I have for you? I want to remind people that the only color Perry Mason is going to air soon on MeTV. If you have MeTV or access to it, pay attention to their evening airings. They're in season 9, the final season of Perry Mason, and season 9, episode 21 is the only color episode, which was the 262nd episode of a total 271 episodes. I've talked about it before, but I just want to remind folks, it's going to air soon, so set that DVR if you want to see the only color, if you hadn't seen it before, the only color, shot in color episode of the original Perry Mason. In my nostalgic fake rant of the week, I talked about my disdain for fun-size candy bars, because there's nothing fun about a little teeny tiny candy bar if you like candy. What's so fun about that? I think people that designated midget, I'm sorry, I'm a short person, so I can say that word, but I'll stop myself. Filtering myself now. Let's just say the little candy bar, the people that call it a fun size probably also say Happy Monday. I can't stand the expression Happy Monday. Now, Happy Friday, that's okay. You don't say Happy Enema. So why the hell are you saying Happy Monday? It's just, there's nothing happy about Monday at all. Am I right? Am I right or what? Yeah, I'm right. I'm kidding. It's finally time for the nostalgic treat of the week. It's all going to come full circle because we're honoring Suzanne Somers tonight. And in addition to being a spokesperson for Ace Hardware before their relationship was severed due to the Playboy magazine controversy of 1980, and I played some of this. I played the commercial she did for this product. I'm talking about Lifesavers. I'm going to talk about the origin of Lifesavers as we start to wind down this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast. But here is a 1978 commercial for Lifesavers, our nostalgic treat of this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast. Even though you can still get them today, Lifesavers also encompass my fake rant of the week I'm going to talk about in this episode. But here's a 1978 commercial with, of all people, Peter Billingsley. That's the kid you're going to shoot your eye out from A Christmas Story. And before that, he was Messy Marvin in the Hershey syrup television commercials. But before that, he was selling Lifesavers as an actor in a Lifesavers commercial. Let's listen to a little bit of this commercial.
Scream the Wicked Witch.
Mommy's mouth's awful dry.
Have a Lifesaver candy, Mom.
Great flavor has been around for years. Hey, cherry. No, wait, banana.
It's both, Mom. It's wild flavors. What about the witch?
You read it to Mommy.
Mouth's awful dry.
Lifesavers.
So the Wicked Witch.
I like that jingle. You might be thinking, what the hell is your beef with Lifesavers, Chance? Why is Lifesavers part of your fake rant of the episode? Well, I'll explain, and I think you'll get fired up a little bit too about it. Let's see here. I do want to play another Lifesavers ad, and then we'll get into a brief history of Lifesavers, the origin of Lifesavers. Yeah, here it is. Here's a 19... Well, why don't I play, because it was earlier in the show. I guess I could play. Should I play again? No, I'm so indecisive here as we're live. I already played it. I played the Suzanne Somers commercial with her father. That was a classic ad for Lifesavers. But let me play one from 1981. What the hell is it? Oh. Yeah, here's a 1981 Lifesavers commercial. Sorry, listeners and viewers. It's a 30-second commercial, so it's not long.
What? You're telling me that this juicy, delicious taste has always had less than 10 calories? You bet your Lifesavers.
That's my favorite candy. I never knew each one had less than 10 calories.
Yeah, bet your Lifesavers. That's cute.
Hey, Mom, can I have some candy?
You bet your Lifesavers.
Can Lifesavers roll candy add more fun to your life with less than 10 calories each?
You bet your Lifesavers.
One more commercial from 1982, speaking of 82, like that McDonald's and the fictional Loki series streaming on Disney+. I'm going to play this one as I show you some Lifesavers I have right here in the studio. The nostalgic Podblast home studio. And then we'll get to the rant. I got two commercials I'm going to play for Lifesavers for you. Here's a 1982 spot called Do Yourself a Flavor. Let's listen.
Lifesavers. There are about 110 calories per roll. That's 10 calories each. So do yourself a flavor. Lifesavers. Do yourself a flavor.
There you go. So I was stalling for the listeners. I wanted to show the viewers as I was playing that some Lifesavers I have right here. I have butter rum and have the 5 flavors, which are pretty standard. But let's talk about the history of Lifesavers. Lifesavers were first created in 1912 by Clarence Crane. His name was spelled C-R-A-N-E, Crane. He was a Garrettsville, Ohio candy maker and the father of the famed poet Hart Crane, H-A-R-T, Hart Crane. Like Corey Hart, I wear my sunglasses at night so I can. Clarence had switched from the maple sugar business to chocolates the year before, but found that they sold poorly in the summer because air conditioning was very rare and they melted. He saw a machine in pharmacies back in 1912 used to make pills that were round and wafer-shaped and thought he'd use those to make mints, which at the time were made square, like Velamints, because they were pressed in sheets and then sliced into squares. The machinery could also punch a hole in the center of the mint. And Crane named the candy after its resulting life preserver image and shape. About a year later, in 1913, a young English-American named Joseph Noble from Connecticut established the modern-day version of what would become Lifesavers candy. Noble's original idea of producing the candy was going to be mint-flavored. But as the candy progressed over the years, different varieties have been introduced. In 1913, Crane sold the formula for his Lifesavers to Edward Noble of New York for $2,900. Noble started his own candy company and began producing and selling the mints known as Peppo-Mint Lifesavers. There's one on camera right here for the viewer. They're individually wrapped nowadays, of course, as well as rolled in some instances. He also began to package the mints into rolls wrapped in tin foil to keep them from going stale. This process was done by hand until 1919, when machinery was developed by Edward Noble's brother, Robert Peckham Noble, to streamline the process. Robert was a Purdue-educated engineer. He took his younger brother's entrepreneurial vision and designed and built the manufacturing facilities needed to expand the company. The primary manufacturing plant for Lifesavers was located in Port Chester, New York, a local landmark replete with a Lifesavers motif cast into the cornice. Robert led the company as its chief executive officer, or CEO, if you will, and primary shareholder for more than 40 years until selling the company in the late 1950s. By 1919, 6 other flavors, Wint-O-Green, Clo-O-V, Lick-O-Rish, Cinnamon, like Amon, M-O-N, Violet, and Choc-O-Let had been developed, and these remained the standard flavors until the late 1920s. In 1920, a new flavor called Malt-O-Milk was introduced. Nothing against milk. I like milk. I drink milk, but Malt-O-Milk sounds nasty as a Lifesaver. That flavor was received so poorly that it was discontinued after only a few years. In 1925, the tin foil was replaced with aluminum foil to keep the packs fresh, the rolls fresh. Noble promoted the candy at the cash registers of saloons, cigar stores, drugstores, barbershops, and restaurants. He had the candy placed with a 5-cent price near the cash register. That was smart. A little after dinner mint, or after lunch mint, or after breakfast mint. In 1921, the company began to produce solid fruit drops. In 1925, technology improved to allow a hole into the center of the fruit candies. These were introduced as the fruit drop with the hole and came in orange, lemon, and lime, and each of which were packaged in their own separate rolls. In contrast to the opaque white mints previously produced by the company, these new candies were crystal-like in appearance. These new flavors became popular with the public. 4 new flavors were quickly introduced, namely anise, butterrum, cola, and root beer, which were made in the clear fruit drop style. Other than butterrum, which remains in the brand's lineup of flavors, these did not prove to be as popular as the original 3 fruit drop flavors were. In 1931, the Lifesavers cough drop was introduced with menthol, but it was not successful. In 1931, rolls of pineapple and cherry fruit drops were also introduced. As the public response proved positive for these, a new variety of mint called Crystal Mint, made in the same crystal-like style, was introduced in 1932. In 1935, the classic 5-flavor rolls, like you see here, viewers, were introduced, offering a selection of 5 different flavors. Here's the original set of 5 flavors: pineapple, lime, orange, cherry, and lemon in each roll. The flavor lineup was unchanged for nearly 70 years until 2003, just over 20 years ago. This sucks. This makes me mad. When 3 of the flavors were replaced in the United States, making the rolls pineapple, cherry, raspberry, watermelon, and blackberry. The watermelon tastes like a Jolly Rancher. I think they're trying to copy Jolly Rancher a little bit with that. However, orange was subsequently reintroduced and blackberry was dropped. I like the blackberry. The original 5-flavor lineup is still sold in Canada. In the late 1930s and 1940s, 4 new mint flavors were introduced: Molasso Mint, Spearo Mint, Choco Mint, and Stick O Pep. That's spelled S-T-I-K, Stick O Pep. During the Second World War, World War II, other candy manufacturers donated their sugar rations to keep lifesavers in production so that the little candies could be shared with armed forces as a tasty reminder of life at home. Soon after the war ended, the manufacturing license was withdrawn. In 1947, the United Kingdom-based Roundtrees, which formerly had been licensed to make lifesavers, started to manufacture a similar product called the Polo Mint, like Ralph Lauren Polo, or the game Polo with the horse. In 1981, Nabisco brands, Nabisco Inc. acquired lifesavers from the E.R. Squibb Corporation. A number of early mint flavors, including Clovey, Violet, Licorice, and Cinnamon, were discontinued due to poor sales. Nabisco introduced a new cinnamon flavor, Hot Cinnamon Lifesavers, as a clear fruit drop type candy. This replaced the white mint flavor, Cinnamon, which had been discontinued. The other original mint flavors were retired. A number of other flavors were also quickly discontinued after Nabisco took over in order to make the business more profitable. In 2004, the U.S. Lifesavers business was acquired by Wrigley's. Wrigley's introduced 2 new mint flavors for the first time in over 60 years. In 2006, Orange Mint, which I recently discovered it tastes like the Certs, fruit flavor Certs. I miss Certs. They were discontinued in 2018 by the U.S. Congress due to hydrogenated cottonseed oil being an ingredient in Certs. Remember Certs with Retsin? They're two mints in one. Did you know that Certs have been gone since 2018? Unbelievable. I loved Certs. So did my grandma. She always kept a little roll in her purse. Didn't your grandma do that too? I'm sure she did. And they also made, along with Orange Mint, Orange Mint in 2006, they introduced for the first time in 60 years, Sweet Mint. I haven't tried that one. I don't know if it's still being made. They also revived some of the early mint flavors, such as Wintergreen. I don't know if that ever went away. I find that hard to believe. I always remember Wintergreen being around. My grandpa loved Wintergreen. I like Peppermint. So Lifesavers production was based in Holland, Michigan until 2002, when it was moved to Montreal, Quebec, Canada, due to significantly lower sugar prices in the new location in Canada. The company's headquarters in Port Chester, New York, where Lifesavers were made from 1920 until 1984, was distinctive. Although it has been converted to apartments, it still retains some Lifesavers signage. It was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1985. The rights to the Lifesavers brand in Australia and New Zealand were sold by Nestle to Daryl Lea. L-E-A is how you spell his last name. Daryl, this is my brother Daryl, mother brother Daryl Lea, or Lee, in 2018. As a result of the sale, production was shifted from New Zealand to Australia. Now here comes my rant of this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast pertaining to Lifesavers, and I'm going to play the final commercial, 30-second commercial, to set this up. And let me make sure it's right here. It should be. This is a Christmas commercial for Lifesavers. Hint, hint. Hang on, let me get it just right. There we are. Let's listen.
Sometimes it's the little things that make all the difference. Lifesavers Sweet Storybook and Keepsake Tins. Christmas just isn't the same without them.
How about that? Now, when I was a kid, when you were a kid, you remember these holiday and Christmas storybooks, and they came with 10 rolls of lifesavers. Well, nowadays you get half that. You get 5 just on one side of the book. And here's the thing that really ticks me off, and I'm serious about this one. Instead of these rolls, you had a roll of butter rum, you had a roll of just wild cherry lifesavers, you had the 5 flavors, you had the peppermint, you had the wintergreen. Now all you get are the 5 flavors on one side of the book. So you get 50% less and only one flavor, even though I still see butter rum in rolled form at CVS drugstores. And they sell packets of the peppermint and the wintergreen. And the orange mints you can find at some Walmarts. Those are great. I like the orange mints. And I didn't know those dated back to 2006. I thought they were brand new to help fill the void left behind by certs. Fruit flavors going away in 2018. So how about this? Do you remember the Lifesavers lollipop? That was pretty good. It was like an oversized lifesaver on a stick, like a Charms Blow Pop or something. And it would have like a white look to it and like the color. And those were tasty. I forget the flavoring, but it was like a vanilla type flavor. That was good. And I like the doggone gummy lifesavers. They took a page from Harborough, whatever, in Germany with the gummy bears. And these are softer. They taste really good. And they're so addictive. The Lifesavers gummies are really, really addictive. Are they not? I love them. Now, I have a question for parents out there. Is anyone going to make caramel apples for their kids this season with like the Kraft or the Brock's square caramel and the little like crinkly plastic cover for the caramel? I used to love to do that. That was great. Loved it. Now, I usually do a correction of something. I'm going to do something I accidentally omitted from going back to a couple shows to the Battlestar Galactica turns 45. I called it Battlestar Galactica, the first 45 years. You see this? This is the Battlestar Galactica storybook. This is funny. I'm not going to rehash it because I'm trying to grab some sleep. I'm starting to get really tired. But I told you the story about how John Dykstra did the special effects for Battlestar Galactica after he had done Star Wars, and it angered George Lucas. So much so that there's litigation. Well, there's a little Easter egg in the very first Battlestar Galactica that's in this book, and it's in the episode 2 by John Dykstra. I don't know if this will show up on the camera or not. I'm going to say a bad word here. This was directed at George Lucas. I have no beef with George Lucas, okay? So I have no dog in this hunt. I like both I like both John Dykstra for his contribution to special effects and the advancement of special effects, which is huge. Star Wars was groundbreaking. The original 1977. Before it was A New Hope, that was tacked on in like 1981 for a re-release. He's phenomenal. Well, in the book, in the attack of Caprica, in the lights, here's the bad word, brace yourself, mute it if you have kids around. John Dykstra put in the lights the words, fuck off, which you can see in the book. And that's well known. And if you know where you're looking in the episode, you can pause it, especially on Blu-ray or streaming, and see it right there, big as life. And it was on ABC TV. Let me try to hold that up. So I wanted to mention that in the Battlestar Galactica, and I love this little photo book. They also had one for the movie Grease that my sister had, and it literally has, it looks like a comic book with captions. It's just a cool little book. Anyway, and that tickles me about that little message that John Dykstra sent to George Lucas. Let's see. I want to do some recommendations, and then we're going to say goodnight and goodbye until next time. Last time I brought back our game taglines, where I mention a tagline and you try to think of what product it represents as an advertising slogan, in other words. And we did one on candies. I'll do that next time. I'm going to skip that. I had prepared some, but I didn't mean to go this long tonight. I want to keep this under 3 hours. This tribute to the great Suzanne Somers, who really, really is a pop culture icon. I loved her personality. Her look, her humor. And in the beginning, I don't think I mentioned this. I mentioned YouTube Live. She was not a buffoon in Three's Company. Her character was not written to be a ditz. That came along later in the characterizations in season 3 and season 4. But if you go back to season 1 and 2, she wasn't a dummy. And certainly Suzanne Somers was no dummy. She was a very intelligent person, a great business person. And I just think it's a shame that there have been no inroads with breast cancer research that I can tell. You know, set me straight if I'm wrong, but I mean, where's the money going? What's going on here? So here are my recommendations before I sign off of fellow nostalgia shows and Facebook groups and things that I like, and some new ones. I want to introduce you to a new one that I found on YouTube recently. I want to talk about Facebook first. I have 2 Facebook groups pertaining to classic television specifically that have a lot of information. I learn from these groups often. One is Steve Russo's group. It's called The Fun World of Classic Television, 1946 to 1947 to 1981 to 1982. I know that's a little confusing sounding, and it's kind of awkward. You know, I would think it would say 1946 to 1982, but it's not my decision, not my call. He does a great job. He finds articles from all sorts of different sources, brings it all together in his Facebook group, The Fun World of Classic Television, 1946 to 1947 to 1981 to 82. So join that group if you want. I think you'll really dig it if you're into classic TV like I am, if you're, you know, always wanting to learn more and see interesting images and pictures and celebrate birthdays. Speaking of birthdays, nobody does celebrity birthdays better than Curtis Lanclow of the Retro Zest Show, as it's called on Fistful of Radio out of Atlanta. His website is retrozest.com. Retro Zest is the name of his show, and he interviews a lot of fascinating celebrities, and he gets guests that you don't see every day. You know, there are certain people, and there's nothing wrong with that are just out there, and that's fine. But you hear their stories so many times, it gets a little old. He gets really unique guests, and it's excellent audio. It's perfect quality. I highly recommend it. Wow, I have an Amber Alert going on from Columbus, Georgia. Damn. Hope they find who they're looking for. All right, so go to retrozest.com, and you'll see some merchandising he offers, too, for a reasonable price. He has T-shirts, really good quality stuff, pins, like, remember pins in the 1980s? I got to talk about that on the Podblast, or do a post in our Facebook group, the Nostalgic Podblast. I haven't done one yet about pins of the 80s. He's got all that stuff. Just go to retrozest.com, and you'll see his latest edition of his show. And he's here in Georgia, as I am. He's in North Georgia in Dawsonville. Met him several times. We've had lunch together, talked, and he's very smart, very intelligent. So recommend his show. You'll love it. Here's a radio show on a small station in Cartersville, Georgia, but they're also everywhere else on the internet. Most places they're on TuneIn, Spotify. I'm trying to think where else. Anyway, the audio, but there's no video, which kind of blows, but that's okay. I mean, it's a radio show. They're trying to be old school and all that, but one of these days they got to put a camera in there. Especially for their annual Halloween show, which is coming up. That would be cool on camera, just for once to do it on camera. But it's a good show, I think. I recommend it. It's called BK on the Air. BK stands for Barry King, the host of the show, not Burger King, but it's B.K. on the Air. Saturdays, 2-hour show, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time on WBHF. And you can go to their website. If you're not within range of their 2,000-watt signal, you can pick it up via the website, wbhf.org. It's a good show. I recommend it. Now, another radio show I want to recommend is one called Geek to Me Radio, which is live for 1 hour Sunday evenings from St. Louis on a huge radio station in that market, KTRS. And James Install, with an E. James Install is the host. And he just announced a new podcast with the voice of Wonder Woman in the animated show. His show airs at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 o'clock Central, his local time, and 10 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday night for an hour. And he has a lot of fascinating guests. So kudos to you, James Enstall. He does movie reviews And he's got modern guests, like people that are still working in the industry on often. Authors, creators, actors, directors, comic book artists. He goes to a lot of conventions and reports from those conventions. If you're into that sort of thing, it's a fun show. So next on the list, let's talk about some YouTubers. I would recommend Thrash Pondo. It's a 1-hour show he does live around 7:30 on Sunday evenings Eastern time. And he just talks to nostalgia lovers and does trivia. And he's out of Rhode Island, I believe, or Cape Cod. No, he's around the Cape Cod area. And he's a very, very nice person. And he's a fellow supporter of my show, so I support his. So hats off to you, sir. Thrash Pondo. Pondo. Thrash, all one word, Thrash Pondo. Just look that up on YouTube. You'll find him. Also on YouTube is another fellow Georgian, a couple. Open by Chance. They're a married couple. Open by Chance Toys specifically. They collect classic toys, obviously, classic vinyl record albums, 45s and albums, and comic books. And they're a lot of fun. They're in like the eastern metro part of the metropolitan area of the Atlanta, Georgia side of town. They do great wrap-ups of the shows they're at. They're going to one this weekend, or I guess they've already been there. I need to check and look at the wrap-up video, but they shoot a really nice video that makes you feel like you're at the show. And then they show what they picked up, whether it's comic books or record albums. They do like a 10-minute video or so, sometimes longer. And then sometimes they go live and just shoot the breeze with people. I love that when they do that. Really nice people. David Eon is his name, and his wife, who I don't think she wants to be named. I don't know. I'm just going to respect her privacy. But you can find them on YouTube, Open by Chance Toys. Want to recommend, if you like Superman, all things Superman, the #1 Superman website is supermanhomepage.com. And the webmaster is Steve Eunice in Australia, in that lovely continent. He does a live 1-hour YouTube show every Monday night, as we're live tonight, which will be at 10:30 at night, Atlanta time, 7:30 Pacific time. He has a co-host, Michael Bailey, who's here in Georgia, as I am. And what they do is they'll feature current Superman comic books, past Superman comic books, current TV projects, current streaming projects, past television, past movies like the Christopher Reeve movies, the George Reeves show, merchandising, anything new coming out in terms of merchandising, they'll review it. And they're funny, too. Sometimes the merchandise isn't that hot. And, you know, they crack jokes about it. So I like it. And their website, again, is supermanhomepage.com. And they're on YouTube. Just look up Superman Homepage. And they're on Facebook as well. Good chaps. Now, here's a new YouTuber who's been very kind to me. Her name's Katie. She's in Michigan State. And she interviews artists and comic book land and authors and some actors. And I like her style. Her YouTube channel is K-Pop Junkie. I'll spell it for you because there's an underscore, but it sounds like that, K-Pop Junkie. And hosting creative guests is her game. Her YouTube channel is spelled KPOP_JUNKI, not JUNKY. It's K-Pop Junkie. Again, on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search letter K, letter P, letter O, letter P again, K-Pop_Junkie, JUNKI. Got it? You got it. Now, here's the biggest YouTuber of all that I know of in the nostalgia realm. There's another one called Crazy Man. He's like an animator. His is pretty interesting. He does mashup videos. Well, we're not talking about him right now, but that's another good one I haven't mentioned yet on the show. But check out Dave Sundstrom. Dave, obviously like Diamond Dave, the lead singer of Van Halen. His last name is spelled S-U-N, like our sun, that Earth orbits in the Milky Way galaxy. Sun, Strom. All one word, S-T-R-O-M. He has tons of subscribers, great video pieces. I've talked about this before, but I really liked a recent video he did, a live video, that featured some of the people I've talked about on a panel, like Thrash Pondo and BK from BK on the Air, Barry King, and someone I'm about to talk about next is on that panel. But he did a great video about Topps and Flair television and movie bubblegum trading cards. That's a must-see. And that's Dave Sundstrom. And he also has a program. He does exclusive content for members of his private group. And and see details about that on his YouTube channel. Next up, and this is the final recommendation, is Golden Rage of TV and Pat McCormack. He is an actor with the Screen Actors Guild. He's in California State, and he's won an Emmy Award. He and his fellow fake band members, that's right. He was in a fictional band in General Hospital, the soap opera on ABC, and he won an Emmy Award for his stint in that regard as a musician. He was invited to a recent anniversary party and celebration of General Hospital, and his name is Pat McCormack. Just look up Golden Rage of TV on YouTube. He interviewed Dee Wallace Stone, best known as the mom in E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and she was in The Howling. She transformed into a werewolf in that great movie from 1981. He interviewed recently a couple of times Loretta Swit, Hot Lips from the original MASH television show, and many others. And he's friends with these people because he's out there where the stars live. So check him out, Pat McCormack. And he has a little segment on Barry's show, BK on the Air, Saturdays from 10 to noon. So that's all good stuff. Oh, gosh, it's the end of the show. How long did we go tonight? I already went live on YouTube. I did a specific YouTube live about the passing of Suzanne Somers. Let me see. Where's our clock here? 3 hours, 26 minutes. That's insane. I got to get some rest. Insane in a good way. Insane in the midbrain. Yeah, I have some more Halloween movie recommendations. Save it for next time. So, remember, don't let anyone make fun of you for your interests. It's not like the old days, man. If you ever been to Dragon Con in Atlanta or the San Diego Comic Con or the New York Comic Con, which just wrapped recently, look around. Babes are into this stuff now. Be proud of being a nerd and a geek, because listen, the geek's going to inherit the earth. Or have you not paid attention to what Elon Musk and Bill Gates are up to, good or bad? They're up to a lot, and they're geeks. So embrace your inner geek, I always say. Thanks again for listening and watching. If you want to give me a tip, you don't have to. Go to fistfulofradio.com and you'll see a PayPal tab. It's tax deductible, so you could save some money on your taxes and help a brother out in the process if you like this show. Or maybe you want to donate to get me to shut up and say, would you skip a couple weeks, please? I'm just kidding. But no, I appreciate your support, whether you tip or not. If you're just listening and watching, that means the world to me. Thank you very much. And have a great, great rest of your week. God bless the memory and the soul of Suzanne Somers. Gone way too soon, well before her time. Where were the doctors? Where was the research? She should be alive.